Hello everyone. I am the storyteller. Tonight, I'll tell you a story that doesn't just linger in memory, it feeds on it. A tale stitched into the rotting beams of an old building that still stands on a Kentucky hilltop, its windows black as sockets, its hallways thick with whispers. Most folks around Louisville call it ghost lore. Just another sanatorium yarn, meant to spook tourists and thrill seekers. But I know better. Because I worked there. It began when I was desperate enough to take a job no one sane would want, caretaker of Waverly Hills Sanatorium. A place where the pay was too good, the questions too few, and the rules strange. They didn't call them rules, though. They called them guidelines. What waits inside those halls isn't a haunting. It isn't a sickness. It's older than all of that. An ancient keeper of dreams that never end, binding the living and the dead alike with rules written in silence and fear. So settle in. Don't trust the flicker of your lamp. Don't listen too closely to the footsteps that fall where no one walks. And whatever you do, don't break the rules. After the accident, I wasn't supposed to drive anymore. Not for work, not even for groceries. The neurologist said the concussions had stacked up too high. My skull was fine, the scans were clean, but the blackouts kept coming. Small ones, 10 seconds at a time. I'd wake up standing in the same spot, or halfway across the room with no memory of crossing it. I lost my license. I lost my job at the lumber yard. And when the disability checks got delayed 2 months in a row, I lost my patience. That's when I saw the posting. Overnight security, historical site. Louisville Metro, $28 per hour, light patrol, mostly paperwork. Housing provided. I knew the name before I even clicked the address. Everyone around here knows it. Waverly Hills Sanatorium. The hospital where the TB patients went to die. The place kids dare each other to sneak into, where the cops run ghost hunters off every other weekend. I should have laughed and closed the tab. But $28 an hour for walking halls? That was double what I'd made hauling planks. And the part about housing provided, that clinched it. I'd been sleeping in my cousin's basement, listening to the sump pump rattle all night. The application didn't even ask for references. Just my name, phone, and whether I could work nights. They called me the same evening. A man's voice, clipped and businesslike. Report tomorrow night. Ask for Mr. Akins. He'll give you the guidelines. Not rules. Guidelines. Waverly sits on a hill above Dixie Highway, dark brick rising like a mausoleum. You can see it for miles, even through the Kentucky humidity. Windows like hollow eyes, roofline like a coffin lid. The chain-link gate groaned open when I pulled up in the borrowed truck. Inside, the grounds were too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet, the kind that prickles your neck. Akins met me in the lobby. Gray suit, gray hair, gray skin. Like the building had rubbed off on him. He didn't shake my hand, just handed me a folded sheet of paper. These are your guidelines. Read them before your shift begins. The paper was yellowed, typewritten. Rules that looked older than either of us. The guidelines, first sheet. 1. Begin patrol at 11 p.m. sharp. Do not start earlier or later. 2. Do not acknowledge voices calling your name unless they come from the radio. 3. Room 502 is locked. It must stay locked. If the door is open, close it immediately without looking inside. 4. If you see a patient in white standing at the end of the hall, turn and walk away. Do not approach. 5. Do not fall asleep inside the building. 6. If you hear the piano playing in the chapel, stand still until it stops. 7. If the hallways seem longer than usual, keep walking. Do not turn around. 8. Always leave before sunrise. I read them twice. Tried to grin, but it stuck in my throat. You serious with this? I asked. Akins's face didn't change. Serious enough. If you follow them, you'll be fine. If you don't, he stopped. You won't last a week. That was it. No briefing, no training, no mention of the history. Just those guidelines and a ring of keys. First night. I told myself it was bullshit. Just management's way of scaring off YouTubers and thrill seekers. Still, I kept the paper in my pocket like a talisman. The halls smelled like bleach and mildew. My flashlight beam cut across cracked tiles, peeling paint. Every footstep echoed too long. At 11:47, I heard my name. Eli. Soft, drawn out, like it came from the stairwell behind me. I raised the radio to my mouth, throat tight. Control, was that you? Static. Eli. Longer this time. Hungrier. I pulled the guideline sheet from my pocket. Rule 2, do not acknowledge voices calling your name unless they come from the radio. So I walked. My legs felt like they were moving through water, but I kept going. At 12:15, I reached the 5th floor. Room 502. The door was closed. But the knob was slick, like someone had just let go. I didn't touch it. Just pressed my palm to the wood. Cold. Too cold. I kept moving. I didn't fall asleep, I swear I didn't. But somewhere between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, the lights shifted. The hall stretched. The walls bent inward like ribs. And then he was there. Not a man exactly. Not a ghost either. A shape at the far end of the corridor, black against the flickering fluorescence. Taller than the ceiling, shoulders brushing the walls. His face shifted, blurred me father's, then my doctor's, then strangers I'd passed on the street. Sleep, he whispered. Not in my ears. Inside my skull. I dropped the flashlight. Covered my ears like that would help. The paper in my pocket burned hot. Rule 5, do not fall asleep inside the building. I ran. Down 3 flights, past doors that banged open and shut with no hands. Past shadows that bent toward me. Past a piano that hammered a single note over and over. By the time I burst into the lobby, my watch read 5:55 a.m. The horizon was pale gray. I didn't remember how I got down the last set of stairs. But the guidelines were still in my pocket, damp with sweat. Akins was waiting by the gate. He didn't ask how my night went. Just nodded once, like he already knew. Second shift starts tomorrow. Same time. Then he handed me a second sheet of paper. This one had only one line. Do not dream while you're here. If you start to dream, wake yourself any way you can. He is listening. That was my first night at Waverly Hills. If you take this job after me, listen carefully, the rules aren't a joke. And whatever you do, don't close your eyes. I didn't want to go back. That's the truth of it. I sat in the borrowed truck the next night, keys in the ignition, staring up at the windows of Waverly Hills. Every pane was dark, but I swear some of them had shapes behind them, watching me. But the math wouldn't let me quit. $28 an hour, time and a half if they kept me past dawn. Rent covered. No other job in Louisville was gonna hand me that. So I went inside. The lobby smelled stronger tonight, old bleach, copper, wet concrete. And someone else was there. A man in green coveralls, pushing a mop bucket that squeaked every few feet. His hair was more white than gray, tied back in a rough ponytail. He glanced up at me once and went back to mopping. You Akins's new night watch, he muttered. Guess that's me, I said. He didn't look at me again. Don't run. That's the trick. Don't run, don't panic. They smell it. I froze with my hand still on my flashlight. They The man pushed the mop back and forth, not answering. After a minute, he wheeled the bucket into the shadows and was gone. The second shift. The hallways seemed shorter that night. Maybe because I already knew the layout. Maybe because I carried the guidelines folded in my back pocket, fingers brushing them every few minutes. At midnight, I heard laughter. Not my name this time, laughter, drifting from the stairwell to the children's ward. High-pitched, sharp, echoing. I clenched my jaw and kept walking. Rule 2, do not acknowledge voices calling your name unless they come from the radio. They hadn't said anything about laughter. But I figured it counted. At 12:43, the lights flickered. The hallway stretched. My watch said I'd walked 4 minutes without reaching the end. My calves burned, sweat running down my back. I thought about turning around. God, I wanted to, but Rule 7 stabbed at me. If the hallways seem longer than usual, keep walking. Do not turn around. So I kept going. Step after step, heartbeat hammering in my throat. Then, just as sudden as it had started, the hall snapped back to normal length. My watch read 12:44. I leaned against the wall, shaking, and realized, the rules weren't warnings. They were survival steps. On my third shift, the door was open. Just a crack. Wide enough to see darkness beyond. Rule 3, room 502 is locked. It must stay locked. If the door is open, close it immediately without looking inside. I froze. My fingers shook as I reached for the knob. Cold air seeped out like from a freezer. And something else whispers, low and rhythmic, like chanting in a language I didn't know. I didn't look in. I slammed it shut and jammed the bolt home. The whispering cut off instantly. But that night, when I closed my eyes back at the bunkhouse, the door was still there, swinging open in my dreams. In the dream, the halls weren't ruined anymore. They were spotless, painted white, lit with clean hospital bulbs. Beds lined the walls, each one filled with patients in white gowns. Their faces were hidden behind gauze, but they all breathed in unison, chests rising and falling like one giant body. At the far end stood a figure. Morpheus. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew him. His shoulders brushed the ceiling, his arms long enough to drag against the floor. He held a clipboard like a doctor making rounds. Sleep, he whispered again. Sleep deeper. I tried to wake. I clawed at my face, bit my tongue until blood filled my mouth. Nothing worked. Then I remembered the second sheet Akins had given me, do not dream while you're here. If you start to dream, wake yourself any way you can. He is listening. So I screamed. I don't remember choosing the word, just that it tore out of me raw and loud. No. And the dream snapped like glass. I woke on the bunk, gasping. My wristwatch read 10:12 a.m. I should have left before sunrise. Rule 8. But when I staggered outside, blinking against the morning light, the sun was still low. The horizon was red, and dew clung to the grass like it was dawn. Akins stood by the gate again, same suit, same gray face. You're learning, he said. He didn't ask me about room 502. He didn't mention the dream. But when I looked down at my pocket, the guideline sheet was gone. If you're reading this, remember, the rules don't bend. Even when you think you got away with something, the place remembers. And he remembers. Morpheus doesn't just want you to fall asleep. He wants you to stay asleep, forever. By the third week, the sanatorium had its hooks in me. It wasn't just the hours or the silence. It was the way the place rewrote time. Some nights passed in a blink. Others stretched so long I felt like I'd lived a year before the sun came up. I stopped calling my cousin. Stopped answering texts. Out here, signal cut in and out anyway, but that wasn't the reason. Truth was, I didn't want to explain why my voice shook every time I said, "I'm fine." I found him in the basement. Same coveralls, same mop, though I hadn't heard him come in. The water in his bucket was black, thick as oil. He stirred it with the mop handle like a pot of soup. "Don't linger when the piano plays," he said without looking at me. "You'll get pulled in." "Pulled where?" I asked. He tapped the mop handle against the rim of the bucket. Clang. 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 "You'll see." Then he wheeled the bucket away, water sloshing like tar, and vanished around a corner. It came on my 7th shift. 1 a.m., while I was walking the 2nd floor. The faintest sound, soft as breath. A single piano key, struck again and again. At first I thought it was the janitor messing with me, or maybe some trespasser. But the sound didn't come from one place. It seeped through the walls, up the stairwells, down the vents. Always just ahead of me, always just behind me. Rule 6, if you hear the piano playing in the chapel, stand still until it stops. So I stopped. My boots planted on the tile. The key kept hammering. Then a second joined it, higher up the scale. And another. The sound grew heavier, filling the whole building, until it felt like the notes were pressing against my chest from the inside. I gritted my teeth. Stood still. Counted my breaths. The notes slowed, faded, thinned into silence. When it was over, I realized I'd dug crescents into my palms with my fingernails. The next night, the piano played again. Not the same notes this time, something almost like a melody, broken, uneven. My body wanted to move, to find it, to follow it. My legs twitched, my chest strained against the urge to walk. But the rule burned in my mind. Stand still until it stops. I forced myself to stay rooted, but my head turned. Just a flicker, just half an inch. Enough to glimpse down the hallway. There, at the far end, stood the man in white. Not a patient gown, something older, like a robe, loose and flowing. His face was blurred, unfixed, but his eyes were open and fixed on mine. The music cut off mid-note. I blinked, and he was gone. That night, back at the bunkhouse, I dreamed I was the one playing. My fingers on the keys, striking the same 2 notes over and over, knuckles bleeding from the force. Every time I lifted my hands, the figure behind me pressed them down again. "Keep playing," Morpheus whispered. "You're not done." I woke with my fingers cramped into claws, nails broken and bleeding. The sheets were torn where I'd raked them in my sleep. I tried to tell Akins about it. He just watched me with those pale gray eyes. "You'll adapt," he said. "Or you won't." "That's it." I snapped. No advice. No explanation. His mouth twitched like it almost wanted to smile. "You're still thinking of it as a job." "It's not. It's an agreement. You keep your end, he keeps his." And then he handed me a small bottle of pills. No label. "For the dreams," he said. I didn't take them. Not yet. The next time the piano played, I swore I heard words hidden in the notes. Not English, not anything I recognized, but the syllables pressed against the inside of my skull like they were trying to rewrite me. I stood still, every muscle shaking, fighting not to move. The melody twisted into a lullaby, one my mother used to hum when I was a kid. And just like that, my eyes grew heavy. I pinched the inside of my arm until it bruised. Bit my tongue. Stayed awake. The music stopped. But I know what it wanted, for me to give in, close my eyes, and dream. If you're reading this, when the piano starts, don't fool yourself into thinking you can listen, just a little. It's bait. That's how he reaches you. Morpheus doesn't always come through sleep. Sometimes, he comes through music. The 4th week blurred together. Patrols, hallways, rules. By then, I'd memorized them. Could recite them under my breath like prayers. Some nights I did, over and over, just to keep myself steady. But rules don't stop the sanatorium from trying. They just keep the worst at bay. It hit at 2:19 a.m. I know the exact time because I was checking my watch when it happened. 1 second I was walking the west wing corridor, flashlight beam on cracked tile. The next, everything went dark. Not, lights flickered out, dark gone dark. Not even the glow of my watch face. My ears filled with a rushing sound, like blood in my head. My body locked up. Couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Then nothing. When I opened my eyes, I was somewhere else. It was clean again. White paint, smooth floors, metal beds lined in neat rows. Only they weren't empty this time. Children sat up in each bed, faces wrapped in gauze. Their eyes peeked through slits in the bandages, eyes too wide, too bright, catching the dim light like glass. All of them turned toward me in perfect unison. Sleep, they whispered. Not with their mouths. With their breathing. Every inhale and exhale shaping the word. Sleep. 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 At the far end stood Morpheus. Same blurred face, same impossible height. He raised a hand, and the children swung their legs over the beds, climbing down one by one. They began walking toward me. "Don't run," a voice hissed. The janitor stepped out from a doorway, mop still in hand. His ponytail dripped with sweat or maybe water, maybe blood. Hard to tell in that light. "They'll chase if you run." "What do I do?" I croaked. "Wake up." "How?" He jabbed the mop handle against my chest. "Figure it out. Nobody ever told me." Then he turned and limped away, leaving me with the children closing in. Their gauze-wrapped feet scraped against the floor. Their whispers grew louder. "Sleep, sleep, sleep." I tried biting my tongue. Nothing. Slapping my face. Nothing. So I did the only thing left. I jammed my thumb into the raw nail bed I'd split on the piano night. Pressed until fire shot up my arm. The pain cracked the dream wide open. I woke sprawled on the third-floor landing, flashlight broken beside me. My watch read 4:02 a.m. I'd lost nearly 2 hours. And the tiles under me were damp. Not with water. With footprints. Small, barefoot, leading away down the hall. I finished the shift, shaking so bad I could barely hold the keys. When dawn finally broke, I stumbled out the gate. Akins was waiting, as always. He didn't speak, just eyed the dark bruises under my eyes, the blood on my thumb. "You lasted," he said finally. "Lasted what?" I snapped. His gray mouth curled. "The first pull." He turned and walked away before I could ask what that meant. If you're reading this, here's what you need to understand: the rules aren't fences. They're weights. They keep you tethered to your body, to waking life. But Morpheus is always tugging at the other end, trying to reel you in. And once you slip, once you black out, he owns those hours. You don't get them back. I swore I'd never touch that door again. But promises don't matter here. Not when Morpheus wants you somewhere. The blackout hit just after 1 a.m. this time. I was on the second floor, halfway through a patrol, when the sound of my boots vanished. Silence swallowed me whole. I knew what was coming. My thumb went straight to the bruised nail bed I'd been using as a panic button. Pressed hard, hard enough to see sparks behind my eyes. Nothing. My body stayed frozen while the walls dissolved around me. When the world settled again, I was standing in front of that door. Room 502. Only it wasn't locked anymore. It yawned open, wide as a grin. The air inside was heavy, humid, reeking of mold and something sweeter like rotting flowers. The room stretched far beyond its real dimensions. Beds lined the walls, though I knew there hadn't been beds in here for decades. Each one held a figure curled under a sheet. Their breathing rose and fell in unison, just like the children from before. I tried to back away. My legs didn't listen. Morpheus's voice coiled around me, low and certain. See what they leave behind. See what I keep. The sheets slid back. Not patients. Not children. The beds were filled with versions of me. Dozens of them. Some pale and wasted, others bloated and purple, others clawing their own faces apart with fingernails worn to bone. Every one of them opened their eyes. My eyes. Something tugged at my wrist. I looked down. There was a rope tied around it, trailing into the darkness behind me. The janitor's voice came through the dark, ragged and urgent. Don't let go of the line. That's all you got. But the other me's were climbing off the beds now, dragging themselves forward, arms outstretched. Their mouths moved in broken unison, syllables bleeding into each other. Sleep deeper, sleep for. The rope burned against my skin as they clawed at me. My grip slipped once, twice. I screamed and wrapped it tighter around my arm. Then the floor cracked like glass, and the whole room fell away. I woke sprawled in the chapel, candles burned down around me that I know I hadn't lit. My watch read 3:33 a.m. The rope was gone. But my wrist bore a deep welt, twisted into the skin like something had been tied there for hours. And when I checked my bunkhouse later, the guideline sheet was back in my pocket. Only this time, one rule was circled in thick black ink. Rule 3, Room 502 is locked. It must stay locked. It isn't just superstition. That room is a trap. A collection. Morpheus keeps copies. Failures. Every time you slip too far into him, another version of you gets added to the ward. And the rope? Maybe it was the janitor, maybe not. Maybe it was just my own mind clinging to the rule. Doesn't matter. What matters is this: the rules don't just keep you alive. They keep you yourself. If you're reading this, never step inside 502. Even in a dream. Because once you see what's in there, you'll never be sure which version of you made it back out. There's a tunnel under Waverly. Locals call it the Death Chute. I wasn't supposed to see it. It started with the scraping. Long, metallic, like someone dragging a shovel across concrete. The sound came up through the floorboards of the first level, echoing in the air ducts. I tried the radios. Dead air. The storm outside had cut the signal again. When I traced the sound down the stairwell, the air got colder. Damper. I thought of groundwater, of mold blooming in cracks. But not his was deeper. Older. That's when I found the padlocked steel door at the end of the hall. I'd walked this floor a dozen times and never noticed it. And someone had chalked 3 words across it. Don't follow down. The lock was already snapped open. Rusted clean through. The air inside reeked of limestone and wet iron. The tunnel sloped downward at a sharp angle, walls lined with old trolley rails where bodies used to be wheeled out of sight, away from hopeful patients. I told myself I wasn't going in. I told myself I'd just check the threshold, mark it in my notes. But then came the voice. Not the janitor. Not Morpheus. A child's whisper, high and thin, echoing up from the black. Mr. Eli. They left me here. Can you help? The words hooked into my spine. Against every instinct, I stepped inside. The light of my flashlight barely pierced the dark. 10 feet in, it fizzled, then died. I pressed my thumbnail into the bruise again, hard. Nothing. The blackout had me. The tunnel expanded into something impossible. The stone walls bulged outward, curving like the inside of a throat. Moisture dripped down the sides, warm and salty. The scraping started again, only now it was louder, closer. I realized it wasn't a shovel. It was fingernails. Shapes moved along the wall's arms, legs, faces half-formed in the stone, dragging themselves forward. Their skin was pale as candle wax, their mouths yawning in silent screams. I recognized some of them. The rule breaker Danny, his eyes wide, jaw cracked sideways, still mouthing curses. The janitor, too, but distorted, his keys melted into his palms. The child's voice came again, but it was wrong this time. Warbled, too deep. Help me sleep. Please. Sleep with me forever. That's when I saw it. He wasn't a man. Not even a figure. He was the shape of sleep itself, swelling and receding, a tide of shadows that clung to the tunnel's stone. Where he passed, the figures sank back into the wall, like clay smoothed by a sculptor's hand. And I understood, the chute wasn't just a tunnel. It was a feeding trough. Every body that had been wheeled down here had left more than flesh behind. Their dreams, their fears, their last visions before death, they clung here, and Morpheus devoured them. The whisper came again, layered, dozens of voices stacked. You're already on the rail. Just lie down. We'll carry you. I dropped to my knees, clamping my eyes shut. I didn't know what else to do except repeat the rules. Chapel before midnight. Windows covered. Room 502 stays locked. Don't acknowledge the sleepers. I said them like a prayer, over and over, until the words burned my throat raw. And just like that the air shifted. My eyes snapped open, and I was at the tunnel mouth again. Standing in front of the broken lock. My flashlight back in my hand, beam steady. But my boots were caked in red clay, the kind that only sits 50 feet underground. Back in the bunkhouse, I checked the guideline sheet. No new ink this time. No circles. Just a faint smear across Rule 1, like a thumbprint dragged across the page. I don't think the rules apply in the tunnel. That's why it wasn't on the list. The chute is something else, his stomach, maybe. A place where the rules stop protecting you. And the worst part? When I lay down after my shift, I felt the bed sheets roll under me like rails. I don't know if I'm still in the chute, or if I ever left. It was near dawn when the knock came. 3 sharp raps on the bunkhouse door. Nobody knocks here. The janitor doesn't, and Morpheus sure as hell doesn't need to. When I cracked the door, rain blowing sideways into the hallway, I saw her. Leah. My younger sister. Hair plastered to her face, suitcase soaked through, eyes wide the way they get when she's already decided she won't take no for an answer. Eli, she said. You stopped answering your phone. So I came. I pulled her inside fast, heart kicking like a mule. You shouldn't be here, I hissed. You can't be here. But she was already looking around, taking in the peeling wallpaper, the bunk, the scattered notes. This is where you've been living. Jesus, Eli, this place is. She froze at the rule sheet pinned above my bed. She read the first line aloud. Do not enter the chapel after midnight. Her laugh was soft, disbelieving. What is this? Some kind of haunted house gag? I wanted to scream at her. Shake her. Tell her that mocking the rules is almost as dangerous as breaking them. Instead, I pressed my finger hard into the bruise on my arm. The sting cleared my head. Leah. Listen to me. You follow those words, you live. You don't, you end up like. I almost said Danny. I bit it back. That night, I doubled the curtains on the bunkhouse windows. I told Leah not to peek, no matter what she heard. She rolled her eyes but humored me. Around 2 a.m., the scraping started again, fingernails across stone, echoing up from the tunnel. The air pressed down heavy, the way it always does before the sleepers appear. Then came the tapping on the glass. Light at first. Playful. Like rain. Then harder. Knuckles. I saw Leah twitch in bed. She wanted to look. "Don't," I whispered. "It's not for you." But the voice came next, smooth and familiar. Our Father's voice. "Leah, honey. Open up. Just a crack. I'm cold out here." She stiffened. "Our dad's been dead 10 years. Leah sat up, white-knuckled on the blanket. "How do they know?" she whispered. I told her not to speak. Rule 4, don't acknowledge the sleepers. But then the voice shifted, deepening, twisting. It wasn't Dad anymore. It was dozens of voices layered together, pressing against the glass like breath fog. 2 for the rails. A matched set. Brother and sister. Come lie down. Leah clapped her hands over her ears, shaking her head. Eli, I can't. I pressed my thumbnail so hard into the bruise it drew blood. I grabbed her wrist and shoved her hand down. Do it. Hard. Now. She obeyed. Dug her nails into her own arm until she gasped. And just like that the tapping stopped. The pressure lifted. She slumped against me, sobbing. What the hell is this place? When daylight finally came, I thought maybe we'd made it through clean. But the rule sheet had changed. A new line scrawled in that faint gray ink, crooked as if written by a shaking hand. Never bring outsiders inside. If they arrive, they must be weighed. The word weighed burned into me. Egyptian scales. Morpheus judging souls like grain on a balance. Leah's here now, and she's not leaving. Which means one of us is going to tip those scales. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't close my eyes without picturing that new line burned onto the paper. Never bring outsiders inside. If they arrive, they must be weighed. The ink wasn't like the others. Darker. Thicker. As if carved into the fibers with a nail instead of written. Leah slept fitful on the bunk across from mine, curled tight, lips moving. I couldn't make out the words. Maybe prayer. Maybe dream talk. With her here, every minute stretched like a rope about to snap. By morning I knew what I had to do. There's one place where the rules converge: the chapel. It's always Rule 1, do not enter after midnight. But by daylight? It's just a shell. Pews rotting, ceiling beams sagging, stained glass cracked and spidered. Still, there's something in that room that pulls at you. Like all the prayers of the dying never left, just pooled in the corners waiting for someone to stir them. That's where I found the scales. They weren't decorative. Rusted, iron wrought, set into the floor behind the pulpit. One pan shaped like a shallow dish, the other like a cradle. Both stained dark. And etched into the stone beneath, Tau Zeta Upsilon Gamma Nu Tau Omicron Nu Epsilon Rho Omicron Upsilon. I didn't know Greek, but later I looked it up. The yoke of dreams. When I brought Leah there, she balked at the door. I'm not stepping into that, she said. I told her the truth, as much as I dared. If you don't, the rules will take it out of my hide instead. Please. Her jaw clenched, but she followed. The second she touched the stone floor, the air shifted. Dust lifted like smoke. The scales groaned. Leah froze. Eli. Then her body wasn't her body. She was doubled, one version solid beside me, the other thin as gauze, climbing onto the cradle pan as if drawn by a magnet. I saw her dreams bleeding out: schoolyard chalk, a college dorm hallway, our mother's porch swing. Little pieces of her memory and longing tumbling into that pan. The other pan filled with something heavier. Shadows. Fear. Doubts she'd never said aloud. And Morpheus was there, not as a man, but as a weight pressing down, tilting the balance. The cradle side dipped. Her dream self wavered, face twisting in panic. If the scale tipped completely, she'd be swallowed. That's when I realized, there was a place for me on the dish side. A space carved out, waiting. I could step in. Lend my weight. Tilt her dreams upward. But it wasn't free. The rules never are. I thought of Danny. His shadow face screaming from the tunnel wall. That's what happens when you fail the balance test. Leah was crying now, reaching for me with a hand made of smoke. Eli, help me. I stepped onto the dish. It burned cold, like dry ice. My chest clenched. My own memories spilled out, the night I totaled my first car, the moment I learned Dad died, every time I failed Leah when she needed me. The scale creaked. Shifted. Balanced. Then slammed level. The air burst outward, slamming the pews against the walls. Leah gasped, both halves snapping back into one body. When I opened my eyes, the chapel was empty again. Just rot and dust. But the scales were gone. Back at the bunkhouse, I checked the rules. The new line had changed. If weighed, one must pay the balance. I don't know what I paid. But since that night, I haven't dreamed at all. Not once. And I think Morpheus is hungrier now, like I took something from his mouth, and he's waiting for me to slip. It started with the dragging again. Only this time, it wasn't fingernails on stone. It was heavier. A body pulled across iron rails. I knew it before I even opened the bunkhouse door, Danny. He was halfway up from the tunnel mouth, moving on all fours, skin pale and stretched thin. His clothes hung in tatters, soaked through with clay. His fingers had melted into hooked claws, still scraping the floor like they were trying to catch purchase. When he turned his face toward me, the jaw was unhinged, bone exposed, but he still managed to croak words. They weighed me, I tipped, I keep tipping. Each syllable sounded like it cost him pieces of himself. Leah screamed. I shoved her back into the bunkhouse and shut the door. Danny didn't walk. He slid, pulled along by something unseen, like invisible chains dragging him toward the chapel. I followed at a distance, pressing my nail into the bruise until my vision sharpened. Every instinct told me to let him go. But I couldn't. Not after what I'd seen in the scales. When Danny reached the chapel, the door yawned open on its own. No hands. No hinges. Just pulled wide by the pressure of a black wind. Inside, the scales were back reformed, heavier now, warped as if overfed. Danny's body was heaved onto the cradle pan. His dream self didn't separate this time. Just his whole, ruined shell. The other pan dropped hard, filled with shadows so dense they rippled like water. He screamed. Not words. Just the raw sound of something being hollowed out. That's when I understood. Danny wasn't being judged anymore. He was being repurposed. The scales weren't only for weighing. They were for forging. Morpheus appeared in the rafters, woven from shadow and dust motes, his voice low and thunderous. He is mine. Broken measure becomes servant. Dreamless shall carry the sleepers. And I saw it, Danny's skin splitting along the seams, his arms elongating, bones bending backward until he was a crawling shape more than a man. His face collapsed into smoothness, features erased, only a hollow where the mouth had been. I pressed the bruise until I thought bone would crack. My own blood smeared across my fingers, sharp enough to cut through the haze. I bolted. Out of the chapel. Up the stairs. Back to the bunkhouse where Leah waited, shaking and pale. When I slammed the door, I heard the scraping again, but it wasn't nails this time. It was the sound of something large crawling the halls, patrolling, searching. Danny wasn't Danny anymore. He was one of Morpheus's enforcers. A rail crawler. By morning, the sheet had shifted again. Do not follow the crawlers. Do not name them. They remember. Leah asked me who they were. I didn't answer. Because I couldn't say Danny's name out loud anymore. And the worst part? I could hear him outside the window all night, dragging his new body across the tiles, waiting for me to slip. Nights used to scare me because of what I'd see. Now they scare me because of what I don't. Since the chapel, sleep is a black wall. I lie down, close my eyes, and it's nothing. No images. No voices. No sense of time. Just a hole. I wake up with my heart pounding like I've been running. Sweat-soaked, hands clenched. But no memory of where I've been. Leah says sometimes I sit up in the dark, eyes open, lips moving. She swears she hears voices answering me back. It started small. Objects out of place in the morning. My boots flipped backward. My notes stacked in perfect piles. Then I found a trail of wet clay leading from the bunkhouse door to my bed. My hands were caked in it. I don't remember leaving. One night, Leah shook me awake, tears in her eyes. You were standing over me, she said. Talking. But it wasn't your voice. I checked the bruise on my arm. It was gone. Faded to pale yellow, then nothing. My tether to waking reality gone. Morpheus had taken my dreams, and now he was finding other ways in. The next blackout, I didn't fight it. I let myself sink. When the dark opened, I was in the chapel again, but the scales weren't there. Instead, the pews were filled. Row after row of people with smooth faces. Crawlers. They sat upright, hands folded, as if waiting for service. And Morpheus stood where the pulpit should be, his form stretching ceiling to floor, robed in the shadows of every patient who'd ever died here. Dreamless, he said. His voice wasn't sound, it was inside my chest, vibrating my ribs. You belong to me now. Without dream, you are hollow. Hollow things are vessels. Behind me, Leah's voice whispered, don't let him in, Eli. Don't listen. I spun around. She was there, but thinner. A shadow Leah, eyes glazed. He was using her. Baiting me. I forced my nails into my palm until blood ran. The pain anchored me for a heartbeat, long enough to choke out words. You can't weigh me if I've got nothing left. That stopped him. Just for a moment. His shape shivered, recoiling like smoke in wind. Because it was true, I'd paid already. No dreams left to balance. But instead of anger, he laughed. A low rumble, rolling through the chapel rafters. Then you will borrow hers. I woke on the bunkhouse floor, throat raw, knuckles bleeding. Leah was still asleep, but her lips were moving, whispering in some language I didn't recognize. The rule sheet had changed again. Protect your dreams. If you lose them, you will feed on another's. And for the first time since I started this job, I wasn't afraid of Morpheus. I was afraid of myself. Leah looked different when she woke. Not tired, hollow. Her eyes glazed, her words slow like she'd been underwater too long. Did you sleep? I asked. She nodded, then hesitated. But it didn't feel like mine. That night, I closed my eyes to nothing, same as always. But then something new. A porch swing. The rusted chains squealing. Fireflies in the grass. It wasn't my memory. It was Leah's. I knew it down to the marrow. I was sitting where she used to sit, legs too short to touch the ground. Our mother was beside me, humming. The smell of honeysuckle in summer air. I should have felt comfort. Instead I felt hunger. The longer I stayed, the stronger I became, breath easier, limbs lighter, thoughts sharp as glass. And when I woke, Leah was pale, her hands trembling. She cornered me in the bunkhouse. "You're taking them," she said. "My dreams. My memories. They don't come back when you're done. You're eating them." Her voice cracked on the last word. Eating. I wanted to deny it, but the truth sat between us, sour and heavy. She shoved me. Hard. "You said the rules keep you alive. What about me, Eli? Do they protect me from you?" That night, I swore I wouldn't let it happen again. I pressed my nails into flesh, fought the black wall. Didn't matter. I slipped back into her. A classroom chalkboard. The sting of embarrassment when she mispronounced a word. Then another, her first kiss behind the gym. Then another, walking the stage at graduation. They unraveled fast, like film burning. And I felt stronger with each one. But then, in the corner of the dream, I saw Morpheus. Watching. Feeding secondhand off what I stole. His eyes two pits of endless sleep. I woke to Leah screaming. She clawed at her temples, tears streaking down her face. "I can't remember," she cried. "I can't remember what Mom smelled like. I can't remember his name, the boy I..." She broke off, sobbing. And on the wall above my bed, the rules had bled into something new. Dreams are currency. What you take, he collects. What you spend, he owns. Leah won't look at me now. She sleeps with her back to me, blanket pulled to her ears. I thought Morpheus was trying to hollow me out. Now I see the truth. He's using me to hollow her. And if I don't stop, there'll be nothing left of Leah but an empty body waiting to join the crawlers. Leah wouldn't speak to me for 2 days. When she finally did, it wasn't forgiveness, it was a plan. "I'm leaving," she whispered. "Tonight." Her hands shook, but her eyes were steady. "If I stay, I'll lose everything. My dreams, my memories. You'll take what's left, and he'll finish the rest." Her words cut like glass. "You can't," I said. "The rules." She snapped back, "The rules are for you, not me." Midnight. The sanatorium halls hushed. I watched Leah creep toward the main exit. The padlock hung loose that night, strange, too easy. Like someone wanted her to try. Her fingers closed around the handle. "Leah, wait," I begged. "He's watching. The rules." But she pulled. The heavy door groaned open to the Kentucky night. For the first time in weeks, fresh air rushed in, carrying pine and damp earth. Freedom. Then came the sound, low, thrumming, like a heartbeat amplified through concrete. The rules on the wall began to shift again. No one may leave unless they forget the way back. No one may carry another's memory beyond the threshold. Leah froze in the doorway, her body caught between the sanatorium's stale air and the open night. Her skin paled. She turned to me, voice strangled. "Eli, what does that mean?" They emerged from the shadows, dozens of them. Not just one or two, but a swarm. Their bodies dragged, their heads lolling, but their eyes were fixed on Leah. Not me. Her. One of them opened its ruined mouth and spoke not words, but a wet sucking sound, like 1,000 lungs gasping at once. Leah dropped to her knees, clutching her head. "They're pulling Eleuthery, pulling my memories out." I ran forward. The rules seared in my mind. No one may leave carrying another's memory. She was trying to walk out with mine. The porch swing. The fireflies. The mother who hummed. She carried what I'd stolen, even as broken pieces. The crawlers wanted them back. And if she crossed that line, if she stepped outside, Morpheus would take everything. I slammed the door shut. My own sister on the ground, screaming, clawing to get out. The metal lock clicked into place on its own. Her screams echoed until her throat gave out, leaving only ragged sobs. She looked up at me through tears, betrayal raw on her face. "You chose him," she whispered. "You chose the rules." She hasn't spoken since. She eats little. Sleeps less. And yet sometimes I catch her staring past me, her lips moving as though she's whispering to someone else. Someone who isn't me. I think she's made a bargain. Not with me. Not even with herself. With him. For 3 nights, Leah wouldn't answer me. She sat on her cot, staring at the cracked wall, lips moving against nothing. Then, last night, she spoke. Not to meth-rough me. Her voice was hers, but the rhythm was wrong. Slower. Ritualistic. "Sleep is a door," she murmured. "You hold the key." But I gave him the handle. I shook her shoulders. "Leah, stop. Look at me." Her eyes flicked open glassy, but bright, as if lit from behind. "He listens closer to me now than he does to you." This morning, I went to the bulletin board. The yellowed rules had changed again. This time, they weren't typed. They weren't neutral. They were written in my own handwriting. Do not wake Leah when she speaks in her sleep. Do not answer her questions after midnight. Do not, under any circumstance, dream the same dream as her. The paper smelled of iron and rot. My hands shook. These weren't his rules. They were mine. Or maybe they'd been taken from me. That night, Leah sat cross-legged on her bed. She didn't blink. Didn't breathe evenly. At exactly 12:03, she asked. "Eli, do you remember the porch swing?" My heart nearly stopped. I pressed my hands over my ears. "Don't answer. Don't answer." She tilted her head, lips curling in a smile I didn't recognize. "You already did." I woke gasping, sweat plastering my shirt. But I wasn't in my cot. I was sitting in the porch swing. Our childhood one. The chains creaked. Fireflies blinked around me. And Leah sat beside me, only younger. Her hair in braids. Knees bruised from summer grass. "You gave me your memories," she said softly. I gave him mine. Now we both belong. Her eyes turned black, wide as the sky. The swing bucked, and the world fell away into endless night. I bolted upright, back in the sanatorium. My sheets smelled of dirt and honeysuckle. My fingernails packed with soil. Leah was asleep in her cot, smiling faintly. But there was something else, something new scrawled beneath the rules on the board. A single line, etched deep into the wood as if burned there. "The sister will carry him to me." I thought the rules covered every hallway, every stairwell. But last night, while Leah slept and whispered in that strange cadence, I found a door I'd never seen before. 4th floor. The one place I'd been told never to linger. The sign on the door read, "Records." A thick padlock kept it shut. Yet the chain rattled like something inside was breathing. The lock gave way under my hand. No key, no force, it simply opened. Inside, the air smelled of mildew, scorched paper, and rust. Rows of filing cabinets leaned against each other like old men at a bar. Each drawer was labeled with years, 1931, 1932, 1933. I pulled one open. Files yellowed and brittle slid free, some burnt at the edges. Patient names. Admission dates. Strange symbols scribbled in margins. And over again, a single phrase stamped in red. Somnivigil. One file, thicker than the rest, had Leah's name. But the date wasn't this year. It was 1942. The photograph clipped inside showed her face but older. Worn. The notes read, Subject experiences recurring dreams involving the black figure. Subject unable to differentiate waking state. Recommended induction into somnivigil protocol. I dropped the file. My stomach lurched. The edges of the page still glowed faintly, as if freshly branded. Further back, in a steel lockbox, I found something different. Not a patient file. Not medical. A ledger. Handwritten entries, names of patients paired with Greek words I barely recognized: Hypnos, Thanatos, Oniros, Morpheus. Each entry had 2 columns, dream given/dream taken. And at the very bottom, a final note scrawled in frantic handwriting. The sanatorium is the temple. The patients are the offering. The god does not heal feeds. Behind me, a drawer slammed shut on its own. Another opened. Papers flew into the air, circling me like a storm. Pages smacked against my chest, my arms, my face. Each one bearing the same word. Morpheus. The lights flickered, and for a moment I saw him not as shadow, not as presence, but as a man-shaped void, sitting where Leah's file had been, hands folded, head bowed in mock prayer. His voice poured into me, thick as tar. You read what you were never meant to see. Now you will dream what was never meant to be dreamt. I fled, clutching the ledger. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, each step dragging like I was running underwater. When I finally burst into the main corridor, the door slammed shut behind me, lock snapping back into place. Leah was waiting, wide awake, smiling faintly. You opened it, she said. You saw. Her voice had the echo of another behind it. Then she whispered the words from the ledger, with perfect pronunciation. Dream given. Dream taken. Leah doesn't sleep like a person anymore. She lies flat on her cot, arms crossed over her chest like a corpse. Her lips move in silent recitations, sometimes in English, sometimes in Greek words I can't pronounce. When she opens her eyes, they're rimmed with shadows so dark they look painted on. And she smiles at me like she knows every thought I've tried to bury. Eli, she whispered this morning, he likes you better. But he chose me. The ledger won't leave me alone. I keep it hidden under my mattress, but sometimes it ends up on the table in the common room, splayed open to pages I didn't turn. When I touch it, the ink feels warm. Pulsing. Last night, I tried reading aloud one of the entries. Patient 344 dream given, release from pain. Dream taken, child's face. The words burned my tongue. I tasted copper. And in that instant, I saw a flash, an old man weeping, calling a name I didn't recognize, reaching for a face he could no longer picture. The ledger isn't just record-keeping. It's a weapon. Or a curse. Maybe both. At 3:17 a.m., I woke to find Leah standing at the foot of my bed. She was holding the ledger. You shouldn't try to use this, she said softly, like she was speaking to a child. It's his book. It's written in our blood. Every dream you read takes something from you too. She tilted her head, smile curling sharper. But if you give him something willingly, he gives something back. She dropped the ledger on my chest. The pages fluttered, stopping on a blank space. Waiting. The rules board had changed again. The handwriting was no longer mine, no longer typed. It was Leah's. If you wish to leave, you must give a dream worth taking. If you refuse, you will be the dream. I stared at her, horrified. She leaned in close, breath warm on my ear. Think of what you'd offer him, Eli. Which piece of you is worth trading? That night, I made a mistake. I tried. I whispered into the ledger, take the memory of my father's fists. Take the nights I bled in silence. The ink soaked it up. And for one blissful hour, the weight I've carried since childhood vanished. But when I closed my eyes, I saw my father standing in the hall of the sanatorium, calling my name, not angry, not cruel, just empty, searching, his face blurred. The price wasn't freedom. It was corruption. I woke to Leah laughing. Not her laugh. His. She sat cross-legged, rocking like a child. Her mouth stretched wider than it should. And in the dark, I realized the truth: Morpheus doesn't just want our dreams. He wants a body to walk in. And Lemi owns Sisteris letting him in. Leah doesn't blink anymore. She watches me like I'm prey. Like she's waiting for me to slip, to fall asleep, to dream so she can pry open my skull and hand him what's inside. Her voice has layers now, hers, his, and something deeper, like a choir humming just beneath her words. You can't stop it, Eli. He's already written us in. But if the rules are written, that means they can be broken. The ledger is eating me alive. Every time I open it, the ink seems darker, thicker, and the words shimmer until they crawl across the page. I tried to write a new entry last night, something I thought would bind him. Dream given, the sanatorium. Dream taken, the god. The paper burned under my pen. My hand blistered. But when the smoke cleared, the entry remained. Not in my handwriting. In Leah's. The bulletin board changed again. Only one rule this time, scrawled jagged like it was carved with nails. If you love her, wake her. That's the opposite of what the old rule said. Do not wake Leah when she speaks in her sleep. Contradictions. Fractures. The system is coming apart. I stood over her bed for an hour, heart pounding, watching her twitch and whisper. Her lips formed words I recognized, me name, over and over. I shook her shoulder. Hard. Her eyes snapped open, black as obsidian. But for 1 second, just one, her face flickered back. My sister. Pale. Frightened. Eli, he's inside. Then her back arched, mouth opening wide, and the room dropped into silence. I wasn't in the sanatorium anymore. I was standing in an endless field of ash, and Leah was there, her body bound in chains that stretched into the sky. And at the far edge of the horizon, a colossal shape stirred. Human-shaped, but wrong. Its head split open like a flower blooming. Morpheus. His voice rolled across the ash like thunder. Dream giver. Dream thief. Breaker of sleep. You dare wake what was mine. Leah cried out, chains cutting into her skin. Don't let him take Meplicedent, let him. I opened the ledger. Pages flipped by themselves until they landed on a blank sheet. I knew what it wanted. An offering. But this time, I wouldn't give him mine. I pressed the pen to the page and whispered, Dream given, Eli Harrow. Dream taken, Leah Harrow. The page bled black. The sky cracked open. And Leah's chains fell away. I woke on the floor of her room, the ledger still in my hands. Leah was crouched beside me, breathing, blinking, her eyes her own again. But my reflection in the cracked window wasn't mine. It was his. It started with my reflection. Every time I passed the cracked window, the figure inside didn't move quite the way I did. It lingered a second too long. It smiled when I didn't. And tonight, when I leaned close, the reflection whispered back. Step aside, Eli. You've already given me your name. I smashed the glass. Shards clattered across the floor, each piece still showing his shape, not mine. Leah won't come near me. She hides in corners of the ward, whispering to herself, clutching her knees like a child. When I begged her to talk to me, she flinched. You're not my brother anymore, she said, voice trembling. Not all the time. The words cut deeper than anything he could carve. I've started losing time. Last night, I blinked and then it was morning. My hands were coated in dirt. My fingernails broken. Leah wouldn't look at me. Finally, she spat it out, "You were digging. Out back. Like the others." "The others?" She nodded toward the edge of the property. "There are pits, Eli. Holes. And inside bodies that never made it out. You were making more room." I didn't remember. But the dirt under my nails told me she wasn't lying. The ledger won't stay hidden anymore. No matter where I stash it under my bed, behind the furnace seat's always waiting at the foot of Leah's cot. When I touched it tonight, the page turned on its own. Dream given, Eli Harrow. Dream taken, flesh. The letters pulsed like open wounds. And my skin crawled. Literally. Tiny fissures opening across my arms, black threads writhing beneath. He's stronger now. Sometimes, when I try to speak, the words come out doubled me voice and his overlapping. Sometimes I feel my own hands move without command. And sometimes, when I look at Leah, I feel hunger. Not mine. His. Last night, I almost reached for her throat before she shoved me away and screamed. "Fight him, Eli. Please fight him." But what if fighting isn't possible? What if I already lost the moment I wrote my name in that book? Leah came to me at dawn, eyes red but steady. She placed her hand on my shoulder, brave despite the tremor in her fingers. "There's a way," she whispered. "The records they said somnivigil. It wasn't just experiments. It was resistance. A ritual. A waking dream." She swallowed. "If we can force you into it, maybe we can burn him out." I almost laughed. But the black threads under my skin pulsed again, eager, hungry. And I knew she was right. It's either burn him out. Or let him wear me forever. It isn't just whispers anymore. When I speak, it's not always me. Sometimes the words slide out smoother, colder. This morning, I told Leah, "You should have stayed asleep." I didn't mean it. But I watched her freeze, tears brimming, and I couldn't take it back because it wasn't mine to take back. The fissures along my arms have deepened. At night, they open wider, and something writhes beneath my skin. I bandaged them to hide it, but the cloth soaked through with black. Not blood ink. The same ink from the ledger. When I pressed my fingers into one of the cracks, it didn't hurt. It sighed. Sleep doesn't matter anymore. Even awake, the sanatorium warps. The hallways stretch too long, bending into places I don't remember. Patients I never knew shuffle past me, faces blank, murmuring dream fragments. And sometimes, Leah walks beside me, but when I look again, her eyes are gone. Empty sockets staring into mine. Then I blink, and she's across the room, begging me not to close my eyes. I couldn't stop myself last night. When I woke, I was outside. Kneeling in the dirt. Another pit carved open by my own hands. Inside lay a body. Not a stranger. But older. Hollow. The skin collapsed like parchment. The corpse's mouth opened, and my voice poured out, "You gave him everything. You just don't know it yet." I ran until my lungs burned. But when I staggered back inside, Leah was waiting, clutching the ledger to her chest. "You're running out of time," she said. The bulletin board changed again. One rule this time, written in thick black ink that bled down the wall. "Do not let her finish the ritual." I don't know if it's his warning or mine. But Leah has already started preparing. She said the somnivigil requires two, the vessel and the anchor. And if I'm already the vessel, then she has no choice but to become the anchor. Leah waits until my blackout stretch long. Then she moves. She raids the old storerooms, pulling out relics from the somnivigil records, candles, rusted surgical tools, chalk ground into dust. She pockets scraps of paper with symbols that bend when I try to look at them. I watch her sometimes, through eyes that aren't entirely mine. I feel both fear for her and hunger for her. And he Morpheus guides my steps like a puppeteer, whispering. She cannot anchor you. She can only drown herself. I don't want to follow her. But my body does. Leah slips through corridors, barefoot, careful not to let the floorboards groan. But I always find her. Once, I cornered her in the records room. She held a broken chair leg like a weapon, trembling but defiant. You're still in there, she pleaded. I know you are. Eli, fight him. I wanted to answer, but my lips curled into his smile instead. What came out wasn't mine, he fought. He lost. Leah's collected 3 things so far. 1. A shard of mirror, to reflect what's real. 2. A vial of dust from the crematory, to weigh the dream. 3. And a lock of her own hair, tied with string, to bind blood to blood. She hides them under her cot, but I know. Because he knows. The ledger won't leave me alone. Its newest page is blank, waiting. The hunger it stirs in me is unbearable. Tonight, while Leah slept, I hovered over it. The pen slid into my hand by itself. I wanted to write her name. Just her name. To end this before it began. But my hand froze. Shaking, I scrawled instead, dream given, silence. The page filled itself in, dream taken, voice. And when I woke, Leah's mouth opened but no sound came out. Her scream was nothing but air. This morning, Leah shoved me against the wall, tears burning in her eyes. You think this will stop me? Her voice cracked, raw but barely there. I don't need words to finish it. I only need will. Her hands shook as she pressed the mirror shard into her palm, cutting herself deliberately. Blood dripped onto the floor. She met my gaze, steady despite the fear. You can watch me break every rule, Eli. I don't care. Because the only thing worse than losing you is letting him keep you. The sanatorium feels swollen with something. Like the walls themselves are breathing harder, bracing for what's about to happen. The air is heavier than any storm I've felt. Every footstep echoes too long. Every shadow lingers a little past the object casting it. Leah doesn't sleep. She sits on her cot, blood-stained mirror shard across her knees, lips moving in silent rehearsals of prayers she can't speak. Her eyes are wide, red-rimmed, locked on me. As if daring me or whatever's inside me to try. But Morpheus doesn't need my hands. He comes through the air, through the walls, through the hum of the fluorescent bulbs overhead. The rules that once kept me safe feel flimsy now, like paper barricades. Rule 1, never lie down in the empty ward after 3 a.m. The floorboards groan even when we're not walking. Rule 3, if you hear your name whispered, do not answer. I hear mine every minute. Rule 4, never leave the lights off in the stairwell for more than 30 seconds. The stairwell flickers and dies, staying dark for hours. The rules are being tested, bent, eaten. The ledger opens itself. Pages whip, snapping like bird wings, until it lands on one I've never seen. My name is at the top but not written by my hand. Beneath it, dozens of entries, nightmares I don't remember, traded away like coins. At the bottom, fresh ink bleeds through as I watch. Dream given, freedom. Dream taken, body. I feel it immediately. My limbs move without me. My throat hums with a laugh that isn't mine. Leah stiffens. She knows. The room tilts. The floor ripples like water. Leah scrambles back, clutching her bundle of ritual items. I lunge. My body is fast, too fast, driven by him. My hands slam the cot frame, splintering wood where her head had been a second before. She ducks under me, darting for the hull. Run, I try to whisper, but it comes out twisted, guttural, coated in his velvet tone. Don't run. Sleep. Her knees buckle for a moment. She almost collapses. But then she slaps the mirror shard against her arm, blood sharp enough to ground her. She keeps moving. We end up in the long hallway lined with rusted doors, each room once a cell for the dying. The walls pulse like veins. The ceiling groans. Every door begins to open at once. Hands thin, white, patient reach out from the darkness behind each door. Not ghosts. Not patients. Something older. Dream-sculpted attendants of Morpheus. They beckon me forward. They beckon Leah inside. Leah clutches her bundle tighter and screams without sound. And then I feel it, just a sliver of control, a thread in the storm. Morpheus has the body, but I still have one thing left. The ledger is open in my mind. A blank line waits. I can write one more dream into it. But the cost will come swift. If I write her name, she's gone. If I write mine, maybe I buy her time, but I don't know what I'll lose. And the ritual isn't ready yet. The rules never mention this one out loud. But every scrap of warning, every half-burned note from caretakers, every whisper in the dark pointed to it. At the end, you must stay awake. That's what somnivigil means. A vigil against sleep. A night where no eyes close, no dream is traded, no mind surrenders. It sounds simple. It's not. Not here. Not with him. My hand, still trembling under Morpheus's weight, writes before I can think. Dream given, memory. Dream taken, freedom. The ink burns. I feel my past faces, birthdays, the color of my first truck, the way my father's laugh used to fill a room, all of it peeled off me like skin. But in return, I stagger back into myself. I own my body again, at least for now. Leah sees me falter and steadies me. Her eyes are wet, but she nods. She knows what it cost. We only have one chance left. The sanatorium prepares itself for the ritual. The halls elongate. The windows seal. The stairwell corkscrews into nothing. Every patient who ever died here returns not as ghosts, but as husks of dream, flickering in and out like bad reception. They line the walls in silence. The air smells like morphine and iron. Leah lays out the ritual pieces in the common room. The mirror shard, washed clean in her blood. The pages of the ledger that name us. The black candle taken from the locked storage. A circle drawn in salt and mildew dust, trembling like it knows it won't hold. The first hour. We sit back to back, shoulders pressed together. Every 5 minutes, the room shifts. 1 second, peeling paint. The next, marble colonnades that don't belong in Kentucky, shadows of Greek statues standing where 4 poles once rusted. Morpheus circles but does not strike. He doesn't need to. The longer we sit awake, the heavier our eyelids fall. Leah hums an old hymn her grandmother taught her. I recite inventory numbers from my first job at the hardware store. Anything to stay awake. The second hour. The rules bend. Lights stutter and go black, but we keep our eyes open in the dark. The whispers call our names, louder, layered, begging us to answer. We don't. A nurse's shadow walks past the doorway, pushing an empty gurney. She waits, tapping the frame. If either of us rises to follow, it's over. Leah clutches my wrist until my hand goes numb. The third hour. Dreams leak in. I see my mother, alive, asking me to come home. She's standing in the circle with us, though I know she's been gone 6 years. Leah sees her brother, the one who vanished years ago. He kneels, reaching through the salt line. His voice is perfect. His tears are real. The trick isn't believing or disbelieving. The trick is not answering. We don't speak. We don't move. Morpheus prowls, his voice curling through the plaster. I gave mankind rest. I gave kings visions. You think you can withhold yourself from me? The walls drip with black ichor. The candle flame sputters. The final hour. Leah begins to fade. Her head lolls forward. I slap her arm, hard enough to welt. She gasps, awake, furious but alive. I start chanting, not prayer, not myth, just the rules. Over and over. Like a litany. Like iron nails keeping us pinned to waking. Never lie down after 3 a.m. Don't answer when they call your name. Keep the stairwell light on. Don't break the salt. The rules become our scripture. Morpheus appears at last. Not as shadow, not as whisper, he fills the room, taller than the ceiling, crowned in obsidian feathers, eyes like galaxies unraveling. He leans close. His breath smells like every dream I've ever forgotten. Sleep. The word nearly kills me. My knees buckle. Leah falls, but I drag her upright. The candle gutters out. For a second, I think it's over. Then Leah, trembling, presses the mirror shard to her palm and cuts. Blood drips onto the ledger. Onto our names. The salt circle flares white, brighter than fire. Morpheus howls. The walls split. Every dream husk bursts into ash. The sanatorium convulses. Floorboards snap. The very air screams. But Leah and I remain awake in the blinding collapse, awake as the somnivigil passes its final second. And when dawn's first gray light seeps through the cracks, Morpheus is gone. Not defeated. Not dead. Just gone. Retreated. Waiting. The somnivigil ends. We survived the night. But survival is not the same as freedom. When the light finally breaks through the high, cracked windows, it feels like a lie. The sun shouldn't shine on Waverly Hills. Not after what it held last night. But there it is, weak and yellow, painting dust motes in the air. The salt circle is broken. The candle is ash. The ledger lies open to the page smeared with Leah's blood. She's still here beside me, shaking, her eyes red and swollen. Alive. Awake. We made it. But we're not the same. I don't remember my mother's face anymore. I know I had one. I know she raised me. I know she died. But when I try to picture her, there's only static. That's the price I wrote in the ledger, memory for freedom. And though my hands are my own again, I feel hollow, like parts of me never returned when Morpheus retreated. Leah hasn't spoken since dawn. She keeps looking at her bloodied hand, then back at the ledger. Like she gave something away too, but hasn't named it yet. Her brother's voice still lingers in her ears, I can see it on her face. Did she lose him a second time? Did she trade the memory of him so she could resist? I don't ask. We think about leaving. But when we push open the front doors, the grounds aren't the same. The hill stretches longer, the trees warped into new shapes. The sanatorium breathes, still alive, still hungry. Morpheus may be gone, but the building remains a vessel. It drums beneath our feet, like a heart still beating without its master. And when I glance back, for just a second, I swear I see new writing on the wall near the stairwell. The next vigil is not yours. That's the worst part. The somnivigil wasn't destruction. It wasn't an ending. It was maintenance. Like clocking in for a shift. Like covering the night so someone else wouldn't have to. We didn't stop anything. We just made sure it kept running. At noon, Leah finally speaks. Her voice is a whisper, cracked and tired. We can't leave it like this. She places the ledger in my lap, closes my fingers over it. Somebody has to hold the rules. Somebody has to remember them. Her eyes are dry, hard. She's already chosen. She's staying. I don't argue. I can't. I walk down the hill, past the warped trees, until the sun feels real again. I don't look back. I don't have to. Because the rules are carved in me now, permanent as scars. Never lie down after 3 a.m. Don't answer when they whisper your name. Keep the stairwell light on. Don't break the salt. The sanatorium owns me, even if I'm miles away. And someday, when Morpheus calls again, I know where I'll wake. I made it down the hill. I walked until my legs shook, until I found the old road again. By dusk, I saw a gas station. Ordinary. Fluorescent lights humming. A man at the counter scrolling his phone. The kind of place that used to mean nothing. I thought, I'm free. But freedom doesn't feel the way it should. That night, I tried to sleep in a motel off the highway. I pulled the covers up, turned on the TV for noise, left the bathroom light burning. Still I woke at 3:12 a.m. The rules didn't let me go. The lamp sputtered, flickered once. I held my breath, heart pounding, waiting for the stairwell's creak, though there was no stairwell here. When nothing came, I almost laughed. But then the mirror over the sink cracked down the center, silently, as though something was still watching. 2 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. It was Leah. Or her voice, at least. You're still carrying it, she said. The sanatorium doesn't care where you go. I wanted to ask how she was, what had happened after I left. But the line filled with static before she could say more. Then, under the hiss, a whisper. Come back. It spreads in small ways. Motel curtains that breathe like lungs. A trucker at a diner turning to me with milk-white eyes, asking, do you keep the stairwell light on? A dream of the sanatorium's hallways that leaves dirt under my fingernails when I wake. It isn't confined to that hill anymore. Or maybe I'm not. Maybe carrying the ledger's stain means I drag its rules with me wherever I go. On the 5th night, I wake to find the ledger on the nightstand. I didn't bring it. Leah had it. I saw her take it. But it's here. Waiting. The last page is blank. No ink. Just a faint imprint of words that haven't been written yet. Dream given. Dream taken. And below, in darker scrawl. Your vigil never ends. That's when I understand. Leaving wasn't an escape. The sanatorium isn't a building, it's a system. A contract. A loop. And I didn't break it. I became part of it. Everywhere I go, I'm on shift. Every night past 3 a.m., I'm back on duty. The world outside is just a larger ward. I thought Waverly Hills was a place you could walk away from. But Morpheus doesn't own a place. He owns sleep. He owns time itself. And no matter how far I run, I'll clock in again tonight. After Eli left, the sanatorium fell silent. No whispers. No shadows crossing the hall. No footsteps from the floors above. Just stillness, broken only by the sound of her own breathing. For a moment, Leah thought maybe it was over. Maybe she'd inherited nothing but an empty shell. But Waverly doesn't stay quiet for long. The book had changed in her hands overnight. The pages that once held patient names and dream trades were gone. In their place, fresh entries, scrawled in shaky handwriting not her own. Names of strangers. Addresses. Times. Each one marked with a symbol she didn't recognize. When she touched a line, she saw flashes: people asleep in motels, on couches, in cars pulled over on the highway. Dreams unspooling from them like threads, carried away into the walls of the sanatorium. She understood, then, Waverly wasn't just a container. It was a collection site. A hub. And she was now the one holding the books. On the third night, she heard the front doors creak. A man stumbled in mid-40s, pale, stinking of whiskey. He was talking to someone she couldn't see. "Got your rules," he muttered, fumbling with a folded paper. "Don't lie down, don't answer, keep the lights. Yeah, I got it, I got it." Leah stayed hidden as he staggered into the stairwell. The light flickered out. He didn't notice. Something took him before he hit the landing. When Leah crept forward, there was nothing left but his paper of rules, smeared and wet as though someone had cried into it. She burned the paper. The smell of it clung to her hair, her skin, her clothes. That night, she wrote her own entry into the ledger. Dream given, brother. Dream taken, authority. The page shimmered, and the sanatorium shifted around her, hallways rearranging themselves, doors sealing. When it settled, she understood, she wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was responsible. The walls spoke to her, not in whispers, but in a sound like bone snapping. The keeper must not sleep. It wasn't written anywhere. It wasn't given in a tidy list. But Leah knew it was true. She'd inherited Eli's burden, but magnified. Every night she stayed awake, the sanatorium remained still. Every time her eyelids sagged, she felt it stirring. And she had no one to wake her if she faltered. The sanatorium had its new caretaker. The ledger had its scribe. And Leah, still bleeding from her palm, still humming the hymn that once kept her awake, now understood the truth Eli had fled from. There's no quitting. No leaving. No release. Only the next vigil. I keep moving. State to state, motel to motel. But it doesn't matter where I am. By 3 a.m., the rules kick in. Last night, I pulled over at a rest stop and tried to nap in the driver's seat. My phone buzzed at exactly 3:07. Unknown number. A single message. Stay awake. When I looked up, every car in the lot was rocking back and forth. Not like the wind, like something inside was trying to get out. I drove until sunrise, white-knuckled, whispering the rules like prayers. Inside Waverly, the ledger glows faintly at night, casting shadows across the common room. Every time a dream is taken from someone out there, someone Eli passes on the highway, someone asleep in their safe suburban homite flows into the sanatorium, and the building shifts. Rooms I've never seen open up. Corridors realign. Sometimes I hear laughter, not cruel but weary, like a break room full of workers who've been on shift too long. And then silence. The silence always feels like it's waiting for me. In a diner in Tennessee, the waitress leaned in close and whispered, "You forgot one." I asked what she meant. She smiled. Her teeth were black with rot. The stairwell light. The bulb over the counter flickered once, then popped, showering sparks across the floor. Everyone else in the diner kept eating like nothing happened. When I blinked, the waitress was gone. My check was already paid. They're coming more often now. People who stumble up the hill like sleepwalkers. Some carry scraps of rules written on napkins, on receipts, tattooed into their own skin. They always fail. The stairwell light dies. The whispers call their name. And when they disappear, the ledger swells with new ink. Each failure adds to my weight. I've stopped trying to warn them. It doesn't matter. Waverly only needs them to try. Last night, at the same moment, Eli and I both heard it. A low, rhythmic breathing. Slow. Heavy. Ancient. For me, it seeped through the walls. For him, it came through the radio, on every station at once. Morpheus isn't gone. He's just using us as conduits inside and outside, keeping the system balanced. We're not fighting him anymore. We're working for him. Eli runs, but the rules follow. I stay, but the rules consume. We're two sides of the same ledger. Two keepers on different shifts. And deep down, I know, one of us will eventually break. And when that happens, the other won't survive. I didn't even notice it at first. When I walked out of Waverly's gates, when the cold air of the real world hit my lungs, I thought I was free. There was a silence around me that felt heavier than any scream, but it was still silence. I kept driving west, back toward Louisville, the city lights humming like 1,000 electric candles in the distance. My phone lit up again once I passed the old cemetery on Dixie Highway, bars of signal crawling back onto the screen like thirsty insects. I thought, stupidly, that this meant I was safe. But the rules came with me. The first sign was small. At a gas station, maybe an hour from midnight, I went inside to grab a coffee and noticed the security mirror hanging above the counter. The kind meant to catch shoplifters. Only I wasn't in it. The mirror showed the clerk, the humming fluorescent lights, the endless rows of candy bars and beef jerky, but not me. I froze, coffee halfway to my mouth, and then it happened, the faintest whisper of the rule. Not out loud, not in words, but in my head, sliding in like breath under a locked door. Do not look too long into mirrors after midnight. I hadn't read that in the ledger. I hadn't heard Leah recite it. But it pressed against my skull all the same, as if Waverly had stamped it into me before letting me walk out alive. I dropped the coffee. The clerk cursed. I shoved a few bills onto the counter and walked out fast. My reflection returned in the side window of my truck the second the automatic doors closed behind me. Like the mirror had been a test. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, the dream started the same way, the long hallway of Waverly stretching out in front of me, the paint peeling, the shadows breathing. Leah's voice echoing in the dark, sometimes close, sometimes impossibly far. And behind her, always behind her, the sound of bare feet dragging. When I snapped awake, my throat was raw like I'd been calling her name. I should have turned the truck around. Driven straight back, stormed those gates, found her. But something told me that's what he wanted. Morpheus. That leaving her wasn't a choice, it was the price of me walking free. So instead, I started writing. I pulled over at a rest stop and used the back of a grocery receipt. I wrote down the rule that had come to me, no mirrors after midnight. Then I started listing the ones I already knew, the ones Leah had drilled into me, the ones written in that damn ledger. I kept writing until my hand cramped, because I had this gnawing certainty that if I didn't put them on paper, they'd crawl away from me, nestle deeper in my skull, and I'd forget which ones mattered. And that's when I noticed the other truck. Parked 2 spaces over, lights off, but I could see the shape of someone in the cab. Just sitting there. Watching. I tried to ignore it. Kept my head down, kept writing. But then I heard the sound faint, muffled through the thin metal walls of my truck. A voice. Reciting. Reciting the rules. Not all of them. Just fragments. Out of order, jumbled, like someone had copied them wrong. I turned my headlights on. The other truck was empty. But the reciting didn't stop. It was coming from the gas pump speakers. From the broken vending machine. From the dark trees just beyond the edge of the rest stop lights. Do not walk past the 3rd door. The 4 a.m. hallway must remain silent. No mirrors after midnight. I drove until dawn, rules echoing in my ears like they'd been waiting for me outside the gates the whole damn time. And here's the truth, they didn't stay at Waverly. They followed me. They're following me still. I didn't tell anyone at first. Who would believe it? Hey, Mom, glad to be out of that creepy job. By the way, I can't look in mirrors after midnight or else the god of dreams might crawl out and peel my face off. Yeah. That would have gone real well. But I kept seeing signs. The next night, I holed up at a cheap motel outside Elizabethtown. Stale cigarette stink baked into the curtains, carpet stiff with spilled beer, a TV that only played static. I thought, perfect. Somewhere dead. Somewhere safe. Except the rules came scratching at the door. I was brushing my teeth, leaning over the cracked sink, when I caught the bathroom mirror shiver. Not my reflection, the glass itself, like it rippled with water. I froze. Checked my phone. 12:03 a.m. I backed away, heart racing. And I swear on everything, I heard a voice behind the glass. A woman's, soft, muffled. "You forgot one." I grabbed the motel's tiny Gideon Bible and slapped it over the mirror, tape and all. Spent the rest of the night sitting on the bed with the lights on, notebook in my lap, copying every rule I could remember word for word, like scripture. By morning, I'd convinced myself I was losing it. Sleep deprivation, stress, leftover Waverly paranoia. Easy explanations. Then I checked out and saw the kid at the front desk. He was maybe 20, pale, greasy hair tied back. Didn't look up from his crossword as I dropped the key. But as I turned to leave, he said, real casual. "You're writing them down, huh?" I froze. My notebook was in my jacket pocket, hidden. I hadn't shown anyone. The kid looked up then. His eyes were bloodshot, like he hadn't slept in years. "You gotta be careful with that," he said. "The rules ain't all yours." "What?" I croaked. He smiled, and it wasn't kind. "You keep them too long, they'll write you." I got the hell out of there. On the highway, I kept thinking about what he said. The rules ain't all yours. Did that mean other people were living with this too? Were there others like me, Waverly survivors, or worse, escapees from different places, carrying their own cursed guidelines around like invisible parasites? Maybe that's why Morpheus let me leave. Not freedom. Not mercy. Just infection. Spread the rules like a disease until the whole world lived by his law. And maybe Leah was still in there because she'd seen through it. I stopped in a diner that afternoon, the kind with sticky red booths and a jukebox full of Elvis and Patsy Cline. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I was halfway through a plate of eggs when the waitress, middle-aged, kind smile, gray hair in a bun, poured me more coffee and said, without a blink, "You skipped the fourth rule." I stared up at her, fork frozen halfway to my mouth. She didn't explain. Just walked off, humming low, like nothing happened. But the hair on my arms stood straight. Because she was right. I hadn't written the fourth one down. That night, I sat in my truck with the diner's napkin crumpled in my hand, scrawled ink across it, shaking so hard the words slanted. Rule 4, do not let the dream follow you out. And the second I wrote it, something in the air shifted. Like a door opened. Like he knew I finally remembered. It's hard to explain what time feels like in here. At first, I thought I could still track it. My watch said 3:17 a.m., so I told myself it was real. But then I'd blink, and the second hand would be spinning backwards. Or I'd check the old clock in the nurse's station, and it'd read the exact same time my watch did just a week earlier. So I stopped checking. I measure days now by the hallway. If the third door rattles, I know it's night. If the fourth floor windows let in real sunlight instead of that dull blue haze, I call it morning. And if the stairwell smells like formaldehyde, I know I've lost another whole day, though I can't tell where it went. That's what staying does to you. You become part of the rhythm. Morpheus doesn't talk to me the way people imagine a god would. No booming voice. No commandments carved in stone. He nudges. I'll be sweeping the floor in the main hall not because it's dirty, but because the broom feels right in my hands, and suddenly I'll know the rule. Not from memory. Not from Eli's mouth. From somewhere deeper, like the marrow of my bones is whispering it. Do not let the dream follow you out. I know now why Eli left. I know what's clinging to him. And I know why I'm still here. The patients still wander at night. Not flesh and blood ones echoes, draped in old gowns, skin peeling in ways that don't look medical. They pass my door sometimes, dragging their 4 poles, and I make sure to keep the hallway silent. That's my job now. The keeper. I didn't choose it, but I understand it. Waverly isn't just a building. It's a reservoir. The rules are the dam holding everything back. If no one tends the dam, the rules break. And if the rules break, the world outside isn't ready. So I sweep. I watch. I listen for the rattling of the 3rd door. And when the silence breaks, I give it my voice. 2 nights ago, I found the ledger again. Not in the place Eli left it in the chapel this time, sitting neat on the pulpit like a preacher's Bible. More rules were written in different handwriting. Some in red ink, some scratched so deep into the page the paper tore. One stood out. Rule 9, the keeper must not sleep when the god walks the hall. I touched the words, and my eyelids burned. Every time I blinked, I saw him. Tall. Thin. Cloaked in shadows that moved like smoke underwater. His face not a face at all, but 1,000 dream masks layered atop one another, each whispering. He walks the halls now. And I can't sleep anymore. Last night, I pressed my forehead to the cold glass of the 3rd floor window, looking out toward Louisville. I thought about Eli. Wondered if he was still driving, still scribbling on scraps of paper, still pretending he could keep the infection contained. And then I saw him. Just for a second. A figure at the far edge of the lawn, on the wrong side of the gates. Standing perfectly still, face hidden in the dark, holding a notebook. Not Eli. Not flesh. But a reflection of him. Morpheus doesn't need both of us. He's splitting us like firewood. Eli to spread the rules. Me to hold them. And the dam won't last forever. I was back on the road, somewhere between Bowling Green and nowhere. The interstate stretched out in front of me like a dead vein, no other cars for miles. I should have been glad for the emptiness. But lately, emptiness doesn't mean safe. It means room for him. I stopped at a Waffle House around midnight. The kind that glows yellow against the dark, buzzing with fluorescent lights, empty except for one cook who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I sat in the booth by the window, ordered coffee, tried to write the rules again, a ritual now, like prayer. The pen scratched across the page, my handwriting a mess, but it made me feel anchored. That's when the door opened. And I walked in. Not someone who looked kind of like me. Not a doppelganger in the way you'd expect. No, it was me. Same jacket. Same notebook in his hand. Same scar across the bridge of my nose from when I fell off a bike at 12. But his eyes were wrong. Too wide, too wet, staring without blinking as he slid into the booth across from me. He didn't ask. Just sat. The cook didn't even look up. Rule 4, he said. My voice. My exact voice. You wrote it too late. My mouth went dry. What are you? I'm the part you left behind. He smiled, but the skin of his face cracked when he did, like porcelain splitting. Morpheus doesn't waste pieces. He tapped his notebook identical to mine and slid it across the table. I didn't want to touch it, but I couldn't stop myself. Inside were rules. Dozens. None I'd ever heard before. Do not answer when the phone rings in the dream. Do not drink water after 3 a.m. Never trust the one who carries your face. I looked up, heart hammering. These aren't real. They will be. The cook walked over with my plate of eggs, set it down in front of both of us, then walked away without blinking. Like he'd been serving doubles all his life. I pushed the notebook back. I don't want this. You don't have a choice. My double leaned forward, eyes dripping with something black and thick, like ink. Leah kept the dam. You're the flood. And then just like that he was gone. Booth empty. Eggs steaming. But the notebook stayed. And I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. That night, parked behind an abandoned rest stop, I opened it again. Tried to resist. Couldn't. On the inside of the back cover, scrawled in handwriting I knew was mine, was a new line. Rule 10, when you meet yourself, only one can leave. And the longer I stared at it, the more certain I became the other me wasn't finished. He'd be back. And next time, he wouldn't just sit in a booth. The hallways have been filling with faces I know. Not the patients. Not the old nurses. Not even the shadows that crawl under the doors at night. No, it's me. Row after row of me, standing in the dark, heads tilted the same way, lips moving in silence. Sometimes they copy my every step, like a mirror walking beside me. Other times they just watch, waiting, as if I'm supposed to choose which one is real. And the worst part is they're better at it than I am. Their eyes stay open when mine burn from sleeplessness. Their voices don't shake when they whisper the rules. Their hands don't tremble when the broom scrapes against the floor. They're perfect. I'm the mistake. The ledger warned me this would happen. I found the page last night, scratched half through, like someone had been trying to erase it but couldn't. Rule 11, the keeper will see herself. Do not follow the wrong one. What does that mean? Follow. Where? Into the hallway. Into the dream. I don't know. But I do know this, when Morpheus walks, the doubles come closer. 2 nights ago, I was on the second floor, sweeping glass that was never really there, when the air went still. My ears popped like I was sinking underwater. And at the end of the hall him. Morpheus. Not a figure you can see straight on. He blurs, like looking through heat shimmer, like trying to stare at the center of a dream while you're still half awake. But I felt him. The weight of his attention. The pull of sleep trying to drag me under. And then she stepped out. Me. Same hair pulled back. Same bruised circles under the eyes. Same broom in her hand. Only she didn't look tired. She looked ready. And when she smiled, her teeth were too sharp. I pressed myself against the wall, heart racing, but she didn't move toward me. She moved toward him. Toward Morpheus. Like she belonged with him. And when she passed, her lips brushed my ear, whispering. Sleep. I'll keep watch. But I knew if I closed my eyes, even for a second, she wouldn't just take my place. She'd take me. I sat in the chapel until morning, clutching the broom like a weapon, eyes wide open, throat raw from reciting the rules aloud to keep myself awake. And in the stillness, one truth settled like ash in my chest. I'm not the keeper anymore. I'm the sacrifice. I didn't sleep for 3 nights after Waffle House. Couldn't. Every time I shut my eyes, I heard him breathing. My double. Same lungs, same rhythm, but deeper, heavier, like he was closer to the source. By the 4th night, I was half delirious, parked in a truck stop lot with the engine running just for the heat. My notebook sat open on the dashboard. His notebook, the one he'd left behind, sat beside it. And I couldn't tell which was mine anymore. Both had the same words. Both had the same crooked scrawl. Sometimes the pages matched line for line, but sometimes his version added rules I didn't remember writing. Do not answer the knock unless you hear it 3 times. Do not leave the engine running after midnight. Do not write with a pen that isn't yours. That last one made me drop the pen I was holding. Around 2 a.m., I went inside to use the bathroom. The truck stop was nearly empty, just the humming of soda machines and the far-off rattle of someone mopping the tile. When I pushed open the bathroom door, the mirror above the sink was fogged over. No steam, no shower, just fog, like someone had been breathing against it. And there he was. My reflection. Not delayed, not warped. Perfect. Except he smiled before I did. Rule 10, he whispered. My voice, but heavier, fretted with something that wasn't mine. Only one of us gets to leave. I stumbled back, slamming the stall door open just to break the reflection. My chest was heaving, breath ragged. I didn't even notice I'd cut my palm on the door's broken latch until blood streaked down my wrist. When I looked up, the fogged mirror was clear again. Just me. Pale. Shaking. But my reflection's lips were still moving. I bolted back to the truck, gripping the wheel with bloodied hands. The notebooks lay side by side, pages fluttering in the draft from the heater. And for the first time, I saw the handwriting change mid-page, mid-sentence, slanting sharper, darker. His hand. Writing through mine. The line said, "Next time, we settle it." I drove until dawn, headlights shaking across the empty road, heart pounding. And no matter how far I went, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't driving alone. Not me, not him. Both of us. And sooner or later, only one would keep the wheel. The doubles don't blink. That's how I tell them apart from me. When they stand in the hall, broom in hand, head tilted like mine, I stare them down until my eyes water, until I can't take it anymore. And still nothing. Wide, glassy eyes, lids frozen. Patient. Eternal. That's how I know I'm the weaker one. The chapel's become my anchor. The only place where the air doesn't smell like rust and rot, where the rules feel steady. I drag a cot in there now, though I don't sleep. Can't sleep. Rule 9 burns into me like fire every time my body starts to sag. The keeper must not sleep when the god walks the hall. Morpheus walks more often now. When he does, the doubles draw closer. Last night, I woke, not from sleep, but from that twitch of almost sleep, to the sound of footsteps echoing too loud in the chapel. My heart seized. I gripped the broom like a spear, eyes fixed on the pulpit. She came out from behind it. Me. Of course. Only this version wasn't empty-eyed. She was radiant. Hair smooth, skin unbruised, shoulders squared. A version untouched by fear or exhaustion. And she spoke with my voice but calm, steady, confident in a way I'd never been. "You're breaking," she said. "You can't keep watch forever." "I don't need forever," I snapped. "I just need long enough." She tilted her head. "Long enough for what?" "For Eli." "For the outside?" I froze. She shouldn't have known his name. She smiled. "I see him, too." That broke me in a way nothing else had. Because if she sees him, then maybe she's not just a double. Maybe she's connected a bridge between what's inside and what's out. And maybe Eli isn't just carrying infection. Maybe he's carrying me. She stepped closer, arms open, almost kind. "You're so tired, Leah. Let me take it. Let me keep watch. You can rest." My whole body screamed to collapse into her arms. To close my eyes, to stop fighting the burn, to stop holding the dam by myself. But then I remembered Rule 11. The keeper will see herself. Do not follow the wrong one. I don't know what "follow" means. But I know I can't let her lead. So I lifted the broom and swung. It cracked across her face. Porcelain-sharp shards of skin split open, no blood, just pale light spilling out like dust. She didn't fall. She only smiled wider, pieces of her face dangling, eyes glowing now with something inhuman. And she whispered, "Soon." Then she was gone. I collapsed on the cot, broom shaking in my hands, lungs scraping for air. And for the first time since I stayed, I wasn't sure I could hold the dam. Not when the wrong version of me wanted it more. I told myself I wouldn't open the second notebook again. But like an addict, I couldn't stop. Every night I swore it'd be the last time, and every night I cracked it open, pages twitching like they wanted to be read. And every night, there was something new. Not written by me. Not even written while I was looking. Just there. Waiting. The latest rule sat scrawled in the middle of a blank page. Rule 12, when the dream takes the wheel, let go. I stared at it until my throat went dry. Then I slammed the notebook shut and hurled it into the passenger seat. That's when the truck swerved. The wheel jerked hard left, like someone else was gripping it. My hands clamped down, knuckles white, muscles straining to keep us on the road. The headlights cut across the trees, the ditch, the oncoming dark. And I felt it. Hands. Invisible, but solid. My hands. My weight. My strength. On top of mine, fighting me for control. I shouted, throat tearing. The truck fishtailed, tires screaming against asphalt. Then, through the windshield, I saw him. Standing dead center of the highway. Me. My double. Same jacket. Same face. Notebook dangling from his hand like bait. And he didn't flinch when the headlights hit him. Didn't move when the truck came roaring closer. I had a split second to choose, fight for the wheel and risk plowing into myself or let go. The rule burned in my skull. When the dream takes the wheel, let go. I let go. The wheel spun. The truck screeched sideways, slammed into the guardrail, metal screaming, glass exploding. I felt my body whip forward, the seatbelt tearing across my chest. And then silence. When I opened my eyes, the truck was still. Smoke hissed from the hood. Blood ran hot down my face. The passenger seat was empty. The second notebook was gone. And in the shattered windshield, I saw my reflection. Only this time, it didn't move with me. It smiled. Sleep stopped being optional. It stopped being possible. I hadn't shut my eyes in 3 days, maybe 4. Time didn't work the same anymore, not with the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead and the windows black as tar outside. My hands shook when I lifted the cup of cold coffee. It sloshed against the rim, staining my sleeve. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered except staying awake. Because if I closed my eyes, even for a second, I could feel him there. Waiting. Morpheus. He was in the hum of the vending machine, in the whisper of the hallway vents, in the shift of shadow across the tile floor. Every sound said the same thing, sleep. I wasn't alone, though. The patients had begun to follow me. At first I thought they were just wandering the halls, lost in their own heads. But no, they trailed me specifically. Thin shapes in hospital gowns, eyes hollow, feet bare against the floor. They didn't speak. They didn't blink. They just watched. And when my head nodded forward, when my eyelids dipped for a half second, they reached. Arms lifting like children begging to be carried, their fingers twitching, desperate. By the 4th night, I caved. I couldn't stand anymore. I dragged a chair into the corner of the old nurse's station and curled up with my knees to my chest. Told myself I'd just rest my eyes. Just for a minute. That's when the voice came. Soft. Gentle. Not booming like thunder, not whispering like the others, but steady. Patient. Little keeper, it said. You've done so well. You've watched so long. Don't you want to see what I've been saving for you? My throat locked. I wanted to scream, but the sound died before it left me. The shadows lengthened across the walls, stretching like ink in water. The patients in their gowns moved closer, forming a circle around me. And Morpheus stepped out from behind them. Not a man. Not a god. Something between both. A figure whose face shifted every time I blinked, old, young, male, female, always familiar, never the same. His eyes were pits. Not empty. Bottomless. Sleep, he breathed, and the whole building seemed to lean closer. And my body obeyed. The last thing I saw before darkness closed in was his hand, reaching. Not to harm, but to guide. And the circle of patience parting, as if to welcome me home. I fell. Not like tripping or stumbling, but like tumbling through miles of sky. My stomach dropped and my ears rang and the air tore at me. Then silence. I was standing. The floor beneath me looked like marble but rippled like water when I shifted my weight. Above, no ceiling, no stars, just a wide black dome that pulsed like it was alive. And Morpheus waited. His form was clearer here, sharper, like the dream didn't bother disguising him. A tall figure with a robe that dragged across the rippling floor, its color shifting between midnight and bone white. His face never stayed fixed, the kindly doctor, the grieving mother, the father I never knew, the girl I once sat beside in school. All flickering, one heartbeat to the next. "Welcome," he said. The sound wasn't just in my ears, it trembled in my bones. "The waking world is a cage. You've opened the door." I wanted to argue, but my mouth wouldn't move. My voice belonged to him now. The patients stood around us, still, but different here. Whole. Healthy. Smiling. Their gowns were clean. Their eyes, bright. "You see," Morpheus continued, "I do not keep them. They choose. They lay down the burden of waking and take my hand." One of the patients, the woman with the twisted spine I'd seen dragging herself down Waverly's halls, now stood tall, her back straight. She reached for me. "Join us." I shook my head. My body trembled with exhaustion, but some scrap of stubbornness burned in my chest. Morpheus tilted his head, almost curious. "Ah," he said softly. "You cling to daylight still. That is why I favor you. That is why I wait. But everything bends in time." The patients began to hum. Low, steady. A lullaby without words. The sound made my eyelids heavy even here, inside the dream. The rules shifted. I felt them like pressure against my ribs, like unseen fingers closing around me. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not look directly into his eyes. Do not accept the hand of the smiling dead. They weren't written. No one told me. But I knew. The way you know not to step off a roof, not to touch a burning stove. Instinct carved into me by something older than language. Morpheus reached out his hand. Palm open. Waiting. "When you are ready," he murmured, "there is no pain here. No hunger. No fear. Just endless, perfect rest." And God help me, a part of me wanted it. My knees buckled. My hand twitched upward. But before my fingers could touch his, I heard another voice. A man's voice, faint, distant, cutting through the lullaby. "Leah, wake up." I knew that voice. "Eli." I snapped my hand back. The dream rippled, like I'd kicked a stone into still water. Morpheus' face flickered faster, sharper, the kindness curdling into something vast and cruel. The patients hissed in unison. Morpheus leaned close, so close I could feel the breath of his words on my skin. "Then he will pay your debt." And the dream shattered around me. I came to with glass in my hair and the taste of copper in my mouth. The airbag had blown. My car was sideways in a ditch, engine hissing, headlights still blazing into the trees. My phone lay cracked on the floorboard. The radio buzzed with static, whispering words I couldn't catch. When I sat up, I noticed something worse than the ache in my ribs. Someone had buckled me in. The strap across my chest was locked tight, but I knew damn well I hadn't put it on before the crash. And I was alone. I stumbled out of the car, dizzy, bleeding from a cut on my temple. The night was dead quiet except for the ticking of the engine. Then I heard it. A hum. Not from the trees, not from the earth, from inside my skull. Low and steady, like a lullaby sung underwater. I pressed my palms to my ears, but it didn't help. The voice came through the hum. She resists me. So you will answer in her place. My stomach dropped. Leah. I staggered up the ditch, onto the road. My phone's screen flickered when I pressed the power button. Not a home screen, not numbers, but words. Scrawled across the cracked glass in glowing white. Do not sleep outside the light. I dropped it. My hands shook so hard I almost vomited. The headlights of my wrecked car still cut across the trees. For a second, I swore I saw faces leaning just past their edge. Pale, watching. Step closer, and they vanished. Step back, and they leaned in again. Morpheus' voice pulsed harder. One will wake, one will dream. Which are you, Eli? I ran. Not toward town, I didn't even know which way it was, but back into the woods, following nothing but adrenaline. My body screamed to collapse, to rest, but I knew what would happen if I did. Branches whipped my face. My lungs burned. And then I burst into a clearing. In the center stood a crumbling brick wall, all alone, the last piece of some building long gone. Ivy crawled across its surface, and carved deep into the bricks was a message, old but legible in the beam of my phone's dying light. Those who stay awake may leave. Those who dream, stay. And beneath it, scratched in fresher marks. L. Leah. My chest tightened. She'd been here. Maybe still was. But the hum in my head turned sharper, hungrier, almost like laughter. I realized something, staring at that wall. Morpheus wasn't bound to Waverly anymore. He was following us both. The clearing was wrong. It wasn't just the wall, though that was bad enough. It was the way the grass bent like it was leaning toward me, the way the air smelled like dust and sleep sweat even though I was under the open sky. The hum wouldn't stop. It pressed against the back of my eyes, steady, steady, steady. I pressed my palms into the brick. Cold. Real. The words Leah had carved were shallow but desperate, each stroke angled hard, like she'd been digging with something blunt and refusing to stop. Those who stay awake may leave. Those who dream, stay. I read it again and again, like maybe repetition would make it click. But then my phone buzzed. I shouldn't have picked it up. I know that now. The screen, cracked and bleeding light, showed a text notification. Unknown number. No area code. Just 4 words. Stay in the light. The same words it had glowed with before. The headlights of my wrecked car were still cutting across the trees. A pale cone of safety. And then the bulb on the left side flickered. Once. Twice. And then it went dark. The tree line moved. I swear to God, the shadows shifted, peeled forward like bodies breaking off from the dark. Thin arms, 2 long necks, faces blurred like smeared ink. They didn't step into the light. They just watched from the edge, twitching, waiting. The one headlight that still burned felt like my only anchor. So I stayed close. I circled the clearing, every step making the hum louder, every blink slower than the last. My body wanted to shut down. My knees buckled twice. And each time my eyes shut for longer than a second, the shadows leaned closer. I realized then, it wasn't just about staying awake anymore. It was about being seen. The light wasn't for me. It was for them. That's when the rules came, clear as if carved into my skull. Do not sleep outside the light. Do not let both lights go out. If they step closer, do not acknowledge them. I whispered the rules to myself, the way Leah once had back in Waverly. My voice shook. The last headlight flickered. And my stomach dropped. I lunged forward, grabbing the hood of the wrecked car, slamming my palm against the metal like it might somehow keep the bulb alive. The light steadied. Just barely. The shadows hissed from the tree line. One of them moved a step too far, its foot crossing the edge of light. The instant it did, it screamed high, ragged, like boiling water poured on skin and vanished back into the dark. The others stayed put. For now. The phone buzzed again. Another text. This one didn't glow. It burned. Letters flaring hot white until I almost dropped it. Leah dreamed. You pay. And then the screen went black. I stayed crouched by the hood of my wrecked car, whispering the rules under my breath like prayers. Do not sleep outside the light. Do not let both lights go out. If they step closer, do not acknowledge them. The last headlight hummed faintly. A sickly cone of pale light barely touching the clearing's edge. My eyelids dragged like anchors. Every time they drooped, the hum in my skull grew louder, sharper. It wasn't just sound anymore, it was pressure, pushing behind my eyes, trying to roll them shut. And beyond the light, they waited. The shadows leaned forward like trees in wind, arms twitching, necks bent. Some were crawling, some standing, but all perfectly still once the light touched them. I knew if that bulb died, they'd be on me. I tried to fix it. Pulled the hood open with shaking hands, wires exposed, engine ticking. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I jiggled every loose wire, shoved connections tighter, slapped the metal casing like an idiot. The bulb flared bright for a heartbeat. Then dimmed again. The shadows hissed in unison, like snakes in tall grass. That's when I broke the third rule. I looked. One of them had moved closer than the rest, not just at the tree line, but half-stepping into the beam. Its face flickered like a broken film reel, Leah, my mother, strangers I'd passed on the street. Each face looking at me with the same hollow eyes. It raised its hand. Not reaching. Pointing. At the ground. I followed the gesture. My phone lay there, face up in the dirt. I dropped it after the last message burned the screen. Now the glass glowed faintly. Not white text this time, but red. 3 words. Feed the light. My stomach twisted. I didn't know what that meant. But then I heard something else, my own voice, speaking back to me from the trees. You know what it means. I nearly vomited. But I did know. Fuel. Sacrifice. Something to keep the light burning. I grabbed the first thing I had, my bloodied hoodie. Tore a strip, wound it around the exposed wires, pressed it against the hot engine block. The fabric smoked. Burned. The smell of scorched cotton filled my nose. The headlight flared brighter. The shadows hissed louder, recoiling. It worked. But the phone lit again, glowing red, letters searing into my vision. Not enough. I looked at my arms. At the blood still dripping down my temple. And I knew what it wanted. The hum swelled, pressing, pressing. My body begged to collapse. The shadows crept closer. I pressed my bleeding palm against the hot wires. The pain was white fire, blinding. I screamed, but the headlight blazed, brighter than before, its beam cutting through half the clearing. The shadows scattered to the edges. And Morpheus' voice whispered through the hum. Good. Stay awake, little debtor. Burn yourself for her. I woke to the stench of smoke. The nurse's station was empty, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the tile floor cool under my cheek. For a moment I thought I'd dreamed it all, the patients, the circle, Morpheus' hand. Then I saw my arm. The skin of my palm was red, blistered, angry. Fresh. Like I'd pressed it against a hot stove. I hadn't touched anything. Not in this world. Which meant Eli. I stumbled to my feet, clutching the injured hand against my chest. Every nerve screamed when I tried to flex my fingers. I made it down the hallway, past the rows of patient rooms. Most doors were shut, but a few stood open. Inside, the beds weren't empty anymore. Shapes lay under the sheets, rising and falling with slow, shallow breaths. The same faces I'd seen in the dream circle. Whole. Still. Waiting. The moment I stepped past a doorway, their breathing hitched in unison, like they knew I was there. I hurried on. In the staff lounge, the ledger sat open on the table. I hadn't left it that way. The ink shimmered like oil. Words rippled across the page, forming fresh lines even as I stared. The outside light requires blood. Balance is paid through you. When he suffers, you bear it. When you resist, he burns. My gut clenched. The blister on my hand throbbed harder. I slammed the ledger shut, but the words didn't vanish from my head. Footsteps echoed behind me. I spun. A man stood in the doorway. Not a patient, one of the orderlies, or what was left of him. His uniform was decades out of date, his skin pale as parchment, his smile thin as a paper cut. "You're keeping him awake," the orderly said. His voice was flat, steady, like he'd been repeating the same line for years. "That's good. That's how we last." "What do you mean?" My throat felt raw. He tilted his head. "It's simple. The debt travels. One burns, the other breathes. One wakes, the other dreams. You balance each other. Don't you see? You've been chosen as halves." I shook my head. My palms stung like fire. "I don't want this." The orderly's smile widened, but his eyes stayed dead. "Neither did we." He stepped aside, gesturing toward the hall beyond. "Go on. He's waiting." The air thickened around me. The hum returned, faint but steady, like a heartbeat. And for the first time, I realized it wasn't just in my head. It was in the walls. In Waverly itself. The orderly didn't move as I stepped past him. He just watched, his smile still plastered thin across his face, as if pinned there. The hallway beyond wasn't part of Waverly I knew. Not the tiled corridors, not the offices or patient wards. This one sloped downward, the walls bare brick, sweating with condensation. A smell rose up from the dark iron, rot, and ash. The hum grew stronger with every step. It wasn't in my head anymore. It was in the building's bones. The hall ended at a door made of blackened wood, reinforced with rusted iron. Carved into its surface were symbols, deep and jagged, like someone had clawed them instead of cut them. I pressed my good hand against it. The burn on my blistered palm flared so sharp I nearly dropped. And the door opened on its own. The room inside was wrong. It wasn't a hospital ward or storage. It was a chapel. Rows of broken pews, an altar at the far end, all lit by a single, flickering bulb that hung naked from the ceiling. But the altar wasn't stone. It was a hospital gurney. On it lay another ledger, this one older, thicker, bound in cracked leather. Its cover was slick, almost breathing. The hum here was deafening. It pressed into my teeth, into the base of my skull. I stepped closer. The ledger's pages turned themselves, like invisible hands were rifling through. Words bled up from the paper, written in ink the color of dried blood. Balance is the sacrament. The awakened must burn to keep the dreaming fed. The dreaming must fall to keep the awakened alive. The letters crawled, shifting, rewriting. You and he are bound. If one breaks, both fall. My chest tightened. Eli. A shadow passed across the altar. I looked up. Morpheus stood behind the gurney, taller than the ceiling, his head brushing the flickering bulb. His eyes burned hollow, bottomless. You've done well, he said. His voice wasn't cruel, wasn't kind, just absolute. You've resisted, and so he has bled. He's burning even now, keeping my light alive. I tried to speak, but no sound came. Morpheus leaned lower, his face shifting through shapes I half recognized: strangers, friends, Eli, even my own. You can stop it, he whispered. You can take his place. Lie down, and let me keep you. Sleep, and the dead is his no more. The gurney creaked, its leather straps twitching as if hungry. The bulb above me hissed, threatening to pop. My blistered hand throbbed. The burn wasn't just pain anymore, it was a choice, seared into me. Eli or me. Awake or asleep. Light or dream. The hum reached a fever pitch, rattling the pews, cracking the plaster. And I realized Act 3 was ending not with survival, but with a decision I couldn't outrun. The headlight sputtered. I pressed my burned palm tighter against the hot wires, the smell of cooked skin choking me. The beam steadied for a heartbeat, but I knew it couldn't last. My blood had already run slick across the hood, dripping to the dirt below. I was out of fuel. The rules had been clear. Feed the light. But there was nothing left to give. The shadows knew it too. They pressed against the clearing's edge, twitching, jittering like film spliced wrong. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. All waiting for the last flicker to die. Every second stretched too long. My eyelids dragged, my chest heaving. The hum inside me was no longer steady, it was jagged, demanding, like claws scraping bone. And then I saw it. At the tree lean, between two pale, faceless shapes, stood Leah. Or what looked like her. Her hospital gown hung loose, her hair damp with sweat, her eyes hollow. She didn't move. She just stood there, hands limp at her sides, mouth opening and closing like she was trying to speak underwater. Leah. I rasped. My voice broke raw. She didn't answer. The phone on the ground buzzed. The cracked screen lit, glowing red again. She chooses now. If she sleeps, you live. If she wakes, you burn. I shook my head so hard my vision blurred. No, that's not. The shadows leaned forward in unison, their faces twitching through mine, hers, strangers. The last headlight flickered again. I staggered around the hood, falling to my knees. My hands shook too bad to hold anything. I couldn't fix the bulb. Couldn't stop the bleeding. Couldn't stay awake much longer. The hum inside me rose sharp, unbearable, like someone screaming through a broken speaker. And beneath it Morpheus' voice. One will wake, one will dream. Which are you, Eli? I looked at the figure of Leah in the tree lean. For the first time, I thought maybe it wasn't her at all. Maybe it was him, wearing her face, dangling her like bait. But I still whispered her name. And the bulb popped. Darkness flooded the clearing. The shadows screamed, not triumphant, not hungry, but furious. They lunged as one, a tide of pale bodies breaking into the circle. The hum collapsed into silence. And the last thing I felt was something cold and endless wrapping around my ribs, pulling me down. The chapel groaned like a ship in storm. The boards beneath my knees flexed, bowing inward, as if something enormous pressed from beneath. My palms were slick with sweat and wax from the guttering candles, but I didn't dare wipe them clean. Every nerve in me screamed to hold still, to listen. Then it hit. Not a sound. Not a sight. A loss. Like someone had hooked a string through my chest and yanked it loose, leaving nothing but a hollow ache. I doubled over, clutching my ribs. Eli, I whispered. The name bled out like a prayer. The candles around the altar flared, guttered, and one by one, they went black. Sister Catherine's voice trembled behind me. You felt it too. I turned. Her face was pale, lips bitten bloodless. She clutched the little pocket Bible against her chest like it could shield her from the walls themselves. He's gone, isn't he? I said. No, she whispered. Not gone. Claimed. The chapel walls buckled inward, plaster cracking. Dust sifted down like snow. The air pressed tight, humming low, that same vibration I'd felt ever since the dreamwalk started. But this time it wasn't muffled, distant. It was inside me. Inside the building. Inside everything. And then came the voice. She has woken. He has slept. Balance restored. The sound wasn't sound at all, it was in my bones, in the spaces between thoughts. Sister Catherine screamed and dropped her Bible. The book burst open, pages tearing loose like birds scattering in panic. I fell back against the pew, heart pounding. Morpheus. The hum shuddered higher. The last of the candles blew out. And in the dark, where the altar had been, I saw it, a figure rising out of shadow, taller than any man, its body shifting between shapes crowned, winged, faceless, many-faced. It bent low, eyes of endless black locking with mine. You chose, little dreamer. Now the world must carry it. Behind me, Sister Catherine sobbed, choking out Hail Marys. I couldn't look away. My chest still ached with Eli's absence. A part of me knew, without question, he was alive, somewhere. Not here. Not free. But held. And the way Morpheus' head tilted, the way its voice scraped through me, I knew the rules weren't done. Not by a long shot. I woke up standing. Not on the hospital floor, not in Waverly's halls, not anywhere I could name. It was a road. Straight as an arrow. Black asphalt stretching into the dark, but the lines were painted in pale blue fire. No horizon. No sky. Just black above, black below, except for the strip of burning road. I looked down. My hands were clean. No blood. My clothes weren't the ones I'd worn to the sanatorium, they were neat, pressed. Sunday best. The road hummed under my shoes. Then I heard the first voice. Come home, Eli. It was my mother's. Except it couldn't be, because my mother had been buried 30 years ago. I spun, looking down the road. The dark shifted like smoke, and there she was standing at the far end, framed by the blue fire. She was young again, the way I only knew from photographs, wearing that flowered dress she'd kept for church. Ma. My throat cracked. She raised her hand. Smiled. And something inside me split wide open, because I wanted nothing more than to run to her. The hum changed pitch, and the fireline on the asphalt bent. Shapes rose out of it, not fences, not walls. Pillars. Massive, fluted, carved with symbols I'd never seen but felt in my marrow. They bent toward the road, closing overhead like ribs. The air grew heavy. And behind my mother, the dark shifted again. A second figure loomed, taller than her, so tall I could barely make out its crown brushing the void above. The same figure I'd glimpsed in dreams. Morpheus. Not real, I whispered. Not her. Not. But the smile didn't break. The hand didn't drop. I took a step before I realized it. My legs moved like they weren't mine. Rule 1, never follow a voice that knows your name. The words slammed into my brain like cold water. My voice. My handwriting. That damn list on the clipboard back in Waverly. I froze. The figure my mother, or the thing wearing her, tilted its head. The smile faltered. Behind her, Morpheus bent lower. His face was nothing but a void, but it watched. I felt it. The pillars around me shuddered. The air trembled like stretched glass about to break. And I understood. This wasn't a dream. Not exactly. This was his house. And I was the guest who'd stumbled too far inside. I staggered back from the road center, pressing against the cold pillar ribs, gasping for breath. My mother's voice called again, softer now, coaxing. "Don't you want to rest, Eli? Don't you want peace?" The pull was a physical thing, like invisible hands wrapping my chest, tugging me forward. My knees shook. My teeth chattered. But I forced the words out anyway. "Not if the rules say otherwise." The voice faltered. Morpheus tilted its head farther, curious. And in the silence that followed, I realized I wasn't completely alone. Somewhere behind the walls of the dream, faint but steady, there was another heartbeat. Leah. The chapel wasn't a chapel anymore. The pews had twisted, curving inward like ribs in a cage. The crucifix above the altar dripped wax instead of blood, the figure of Christ melted down into something faceless. And standing where the altar had been was Morpheus. The Dream Lord's body bent and unbent like smoke in a jar, one moment winged, the next crowned, the next a pillar of shadow with too many faces stacked where one should be. "He rests," the voice thundered without sound. "You wake." I clenched the bench behind me just to keep upright. "Bring him back." My voice cracked. "You took Eli. You don't get to." The air punched from my lungs before I could finish. Morpheus didn't move, but pressure hit me like a freight train. My knees buckled. I dropped to the floor. Balance must hold. The dreamer and the witness. He chose rest. You chose watch. The chapel hummed so loud my teeth buzzed. Sister Catherine was still huddled in the corner, clutching her ruined Bible. She didn't look at me. She didn't dare look at him. "You mean the rules," I managed to wheeze. "That's what this is, isn't it? All those years, all those shifts. It was about feeding you. Keeping the scales even." Morpheus tilted its many heads. "Names. Numbers. Routines. Yes. Rules are the language you cling to. Language is the leash." It leaned forward. My vision swam. But the leash cuts both ways. Something in those words froze me. If the rules bound me, they bound him too. That's why he couldn't just take everyone. That's why there were procedures, patterns, vigils. And maybe, just maybe, that meant I could turn it back on him. I forced myself to my feet. My legs trembled like twigs in a storm, but I stayed standing. "You want balance?" I said. "Then hear this, I'm not done keeping watch. You can't have both of us. Not while I'm awake." The walls shook. Plaster rained down. Morpheus straightened, its form stretching impossibly tall until its head scraped the ceiling beams. Then the voice came again, softer now, almost pleased. "Then you will keep him, as I keep you." The hum died. The chapel went still. And Morpheus was gone. Sister Catherine finally dared to lift her head. What does that mean?" she whispered. I swallowed hard. My throat felt raw, my chest hollow. "It means," I said, "he's not finished with us. Not even close." And in the silence that followed, I swear I heard it faint, far away. A heartbeat. Eli's. The heartbeat grew louder. At first I thought it was my own thudding in my ears, pulsing hot in my throat. But no. Too steady. Too far away. It came from the walls. From the chapel itself. "Eli," I whispered. The sound swelled, a second rhythm beneath mine, woven in like a hidden track under a song. I closed my eyes, and for one dizzying moment, I saw what he saw. A road burning blue. Pillars closing overhead. A figure calling from the dark. He stood frozen, shaking, but still standing. Our breaths overlapped. Our hearts matched tempo. The tether held. Balance, Morpheus' voice lingered in the emptiness, though his form had gone. Watcher and dreamer. Awake and asleep. Two halves. The chapel creaked as if agreeing. And then something heavier realization sank into my chest. This was never about survival. Not in the way I'd thought. It was about replacement. Every watch had to be paired with a sleep. Every witness with a dreamer. The system didn't end when you learned the rules. It only stabilized when you took your place in the cycle. Eli had taken his. And I had taken mine. Sister Catherine crawled closer, her face gray with ash and terror. "Is it over?" I looked at her, at the broken Bible pages scattered across the floor, at the melted Christ above the altar, and I almost laughed. "No," I said. "It never ends. But it holds." She blinked, confused. "Then what do we do?" I reached for one of the fallen pages, blackened around the edges, the text warped but legible. I wrote on it with the stub of a candle wick, carving letters into the soot. Not a prayer. A rule. In the dream road, Eli jerked as if hearing me. His head snapped up, eyes clearing, as though my voice had threaded through the void. "Stay on the blue lines." His lips moved. He mouthed the words like he already knew them. And Morpheus, looming just behind the figure of his mother, tilted its head and smiled with too many faces. Back in the chapel, I folded the soot-smeared page, slid it into the ledger's binding. My hand shook, but the ink, if it could be called that, held. "This is what we do," I said. "We write it down. We keep watch. We pass it on." Sister Catherine looked horrified. But she didn't argue. Because she'd felt it too. The hum in the walls. The heartbeat in the dark. The leash cutting both ways. I blew out the last candle. And in that moment, in the dark that wasn't empty but full of wings, whispers, and dreams not mine, I understood. We weren't breaking free. We were part of it now. And somewhere, in the firelit road of the dream, Eli's heartbeat answered mine. Together. Bound. Watching. The vigil never ends.